Mike Dawson,
I'm here.
Tom McDonald,
Here.
Jennifer Finley. Here. Jim Molitor, Carol Langford, Danielle Matt, Bing Matt, James Steele Jr.,
Una.
Martin Charlo, Len Two Teeth, Lenny's Tree.
Stephen, will you give us a prayer this morning to start us? Appreciate that. Well, our minutes from the last meeting aren't quite ready yet. They'll be ready on Thursday. So we do have an agenda for today. We had a couple motions and she missed one of them and didn't get it recorded, and she's waiting for the transcript, the recording to get the second motion from when Fran Cahoon was in. So it'll be ready on Thursday, she said. And, I'll make sure she gets that motion. We do have an agenda. Any additions? Tom? Anytime? Yeah. We do have 3 walk-ins. Motion by Len to approve the today's agenda, second by Tom. All in favor? We're unanimous, and we have 3 walk-ins. We'll start. Stephen, come on up. Stephen, come on up. Good morning. Yep. Push the other button.
How many buttons we got?
Perfect.
Anyway, I'm here. I haven't been in here for a long time, and kind of miss you guys. And like I said in my prayers, that school's going to start, and Kusum's getting ready to go. And so anyway, my chaining them are going down to. I'm going to talk a little bit about Kusum school, since that's your guys' building, and we took over and everything. So, and I was happy that I've been there for 22 years, still talking Gaelic, talking Indian, and didn't lose my language, and full-blood Ponderay. I always call myself full-blood Ponderay. And lived up on the hill, up behind Job Corps, still living there. And Pete Beaverhead, there was kind of my dad, my medicine man. My mom and my dad split up years ago, and so my uncle Pete Beaverhead kind of took over on me. And so anyway, training them are taking off tomorrow, and they're going to go get a boat, canoe, uh, from down there, Washington, way down there where Stevie's dad, Arca, dad was from. They give us a boat, free canoe. You could sit about 9 people in there, the canoeing. So nearby Nia Bay, if you guys know where Nia Bay is. So, but anyway, I just come to report on Kusum and my life, I guess, and not my wife, but my life. So, so I like to joke around, and I was raised that way by Pete Beaverhead and the elders, and language, and Kusum's going on 23 years, That's quite a while, And we kicked a bowling alley out, and we took over, It's just fine, We rebuilt that. Some of your councilmen come down and looked at it, And it's a pretty good building. But anyway, getting back to the school, we're going to start adults next week. Monday, they're going to come in and get ready for classes. And Echo was telling me the other day there'll be about 57 children coming in, from little ones all the way up, and probably we'll have a bunch of graduating this year. At the end of the year, probably 6 or 7, And but anyway, I just thought I peeked in last week and looked like you guys were too busy, and I thought I'd come down today and complain a little bit about things, and I see we're going to get I shouldn't say this, new councilmen, because, you might all got back in, It depends how you guys go out and talk to the people, And so anyway, I had a lot of complaints, about our world, and I'm 86 years old, I come through a lot, In my times, medicine men and all that, no electricity and no water, and we could drink water out there. There are so many things I come through, watched it, And I remember my uncle told me one time, Pete Beaverhead, he said, some of these days you're going to lose your language. You're going to lose our Indian ways, And at that time, we go to church and Catholic church and mission, and that thing would be just packed with Indian people, prayers, and earth lines was going, and this was going, and that's going. I saw all that, in my lifetime. And I thought about it, had a good life and a bad life, of course. Alcohol was involved and all that, But I went to school in Earthlines, and I went to school at Pierre, South Dakota. And I went to Haskell to finish up, there. So went a lot of schooling. But to me, I seen a lot of changes, what the elders used to say. Incashillas, woodcocks, where I've been growing up at, Durglows, and seen the changes. And I even lived in Elmo for a couple of years. I was down there, and we had a meeting, and anyway, all the Kootenays were in there, and I walked in there. And I thought it was for elders, both elders, and I was sitting there, and I looked around, and I said, gee, I'm at the wrong meeting, And Francis Hall was sitting there, and he said, no, you're at the right meeting. I looked over, and I just laughed. I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I lived in Elmo, too. And everybody bust out laughing, you know. And they said, you know, we lived there for 2 years with the left hands. You know, my mom fell in love with that. I hate to say this, but I lived there for 2 years. I mean, not living there, but I learned a lot of things, you know, living up in Elmo and stuff like that. And the elders of the Kootenays, they really liked us, you know. They respect us, you know. And I learned a lot of things about them, and they learned a lot about us, you know. Anyway, Francis just laughed. He said, I remember I was living up in Elmo, so. So that was something, you know. And to me, you know, I lived, like I said, I lived a lot of years. I come through hell and I come through heaven, and I went to the medicine dances where they had Blue Jay people, you know, my dad, and went to Tuipa, was the Blue Jay people. I heard there was a bunch of them up in Orly, but Tony Buck and those guys, but I didn't get to know them. But I'm just telling you my little story about myself, myself and my ways, you know. And like Pete Beaverhead used to say, we're going to lose our Indian ways, you know. We're going to be different. We're going to lose our language. And while I'm growing up, it did happen. I go to church. There's nobody in church, you know, Indian people especially, you know. They changed their ways, you know. And I talk about my elder ways, my old ways, but people say is you have to go with the flow, you know. And maybe I should, you know, start piercing my ears and my nose and my whatever, you know, wearing my cap backwards and showing off my big nose, you know. So, you know, and that's the way it is, you know, today, tore up pantses, you know. And I'm not making fun of them, but I see there's changes, you know. And to me, you know, it's getting help from the council, and I call you guys our chiefs. In my books, you're chiefs, you know. We come here, and I respect you guys, you know. Even if you do wrong, I respect you guys, you know. And I come here and complain, and I'm an elder, you know. I'm a full-blood Ponderay, and I could talk Indian all day, you know. I'm proud of it, you know. And I don't make fun of these other people, you know, that are trying their best. You know, that's why we got Nkusim. That's why we got Sanganation. That's why we got Elmo. We got these guys that's trying their best for the language, you know. Pete Beaverhead said that the language, Indian language, is a lot stronger than Suyapi language, you know. That's what he used to try to tell me, you know. Well, it sunk in me, you know. And so today I'm really proud to be there for a long time. And I saw a lot of kids come through our school, you know. I saw them and they got married and they got kids, and sometimes they come back to Usum to learn, you know. And our Indian ways, we lost that too, you know. And we're trying to hang on to our little different, you know, like Bitterroot, go and dig Bitterroot, Cossacks and all that stuff, you know. And it's powerful. It's really powerful, you know. Powerful things, you know, powerful ways, you know. Today, it's changed, you know, and the way we live, you know, at houses, electricity, can't drink water out of the canal or the river where we used to do that, you know, go hunting and gather together and go up in the mountains, learn how to hunt and skin a deer and all that stuff, you know. It's so changed today, you know. I like to talk about it, you know. I talk about the kids about these things, you know. What do we do at Nkusum? They learn how to dry meat, cut meat, they hunt, and all the stuff that's seems like a lot of people's forgotten, you know. We try to pour into them their little heads, and the thing is, I like the little kids, you know. They're not scared to talk Indian, you know. You say Saspa, they'll say it, you know. And if you say to an adult person, I can't say it, I'm sorry. You know, it just happened, you know. And Gosam is and St. Ignatius and all those places that's teaching, you know. Seems like we're just hanging on by the string, you know. Our language, our Indian ways, or whatever. And to me, as I tell stories about our elders, Enkeshulas, Woodcocks, Quickasoos, all those people down Elmo when I was living down there, you know, Left Hands and all those guys. They had such beautiful stories, you know, they tell us stories. Then the elders used to say, don't forget these stories, you know, just keep it up, keep it in your head and just tell it, you know. And that's all it's about, you know, is our stories, you know. I'm getting up there, you know, I'm forgetful yet. And I go to powwows yet. They used to call it celebrations. That changed. I just went to Welpnet and Browning and Ask Washington, just little places. I used to go all over the place. I used to go up into Canada. And I used to even carry their flag, you know, Canadian flag, the Queen, you know, I'd be out there, you know. And they put that, you know, flathead, they call us flatheads, you know. You're a flathead, yeah, sure, yeah. They know where Arley, Montana is, but they didn't know where Polson because that's where they had their celebrations, you know. Oh, you're from Arley, yeah, sure. I'm not really from Arley, but from down the road, you know. And that's the thing is putting that on a map, you know, this reservation, you know. And I remember when I come in here years ago, before I got in the movies, Carol, you know, it's got a bucket, you know. Let's support Stephen to get in the movies. You know. I still remember that, you know, the councilman, you know, and by gosh, they discovered me, you know, Yellowstone. And 1923, I got to know Mo. He got to be my friend and everything, you know. It's something, you know. I didn't want to. I didn't even think I was going to get in the movies. I used to tell Tony Inkashula, I'm taking stage shows down there at Polson at the golf course, you know. I'd get up there, you know, and he'd give me a line, some bunch of lines. And the person said, they don't have these words in there, you know. You could say anything, you know. And the little kids, little ones like that, when I get off, we didn't have no director or somebody to tell us when to get in. The little kids would say, hey, you missed the line, because they know all those lines. But the thing is, they didn't get a paper to know those lines, you know. They were that sharp, you know. And when I was ready to get in, they'd say, hey, Steve, I think it's ready for you to get in, you know. You know, the little kids are so bright, you know. And anyway, I told Tony, I said, Tony Hinkashel, I said, I'm taking these stage shows. He said, you're crazy. You're already 55, 60 years old. I said, I'm not doing it for anybody, just myself. See if I could do it, you know. I'd get out there and say lines, you know. And pretty soon I got in the movies, commercials and stuff like that, you know. It's something, you know, just, I went to Hollywood twice, you know, and I didn't like that place, you know, just like it's just so crowded and everybody stares at you, and things like that. It's just different, from here, And to me, it's something that I lived through, and people today, they come to ask for help for the council. Like I said, you guys are our chiefs, And I used to get disgusted. I come in here, I say something, and oh, we'll have to talk about it. We'll next week maybe. No, we want to hear it right now, and that's the way with the elders. I say, tell us right now. White people come in there and they want to do this. They want to walk up in the mountains, and Tony would say, well, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. No, you'd say no right now or yes right now. And that's the way it should be, instead of waiting. I don't have time waiting. Maybe these guys do, but I don't have time. I'm 86 years old, I have to put all my makeup on when I get in the movie so I'd look good, and stuff like that, it's just something, I come a long ways, and I lost a lot too, in my ways, and sometimes I think about that. Pete Beaverhead, Incasholas, Woodcock, they go down the line, what they used to tell me, Sometimes I get sad and think about it, I still sweat, on Tuesday nights, and I believe in that. And Pete Beaverhead used to say, hang on to that language, our traditional ways, don't ever let go, And today I just talked to one of the councilmen yesterday, and I said, it's changed, People move in here. White people move in here, put no trespassing sign. Now they want to hunt, No ways, It's everything's changed, There's a time, there's a place to say, no, you can't do that, We don't want you here, We're already getting crowded here, I wish my elders was here, he would jump on you guys just like I am, No, you don't let them in here, because they're running our lives already, and all that, it hurts. It really hurts. And I think back a long time ago how freely we were, but we had no electricity. It seemed like we were poor. We had gardens. We had potato cellars. I could just go on and on and on, But we had a good life, And medicine men, we had good medicine men. They used to go see our medicine people, And today, we go see a doctor, gives us, I pick on the doctors all the time. I say, hey, I don't want no more sugar pills. I'll be just happy for a little while, and I'll be here another 2 weeks. I pick on them. I'm not scared to say anything. I'm old, I could go in the church and cuss around, I don't care. I lived a lifetime. I remember the elders used to say, when I'm old, I come to that trail, I come to that trail. Young people are going to tell me, because they didn't go through that trail yet. That's why I feel, it's just a thing, I live my lifetime, and I got my words. I could go out and bitch around, and who cares, Today, I just come and talk to your councilman, and I say they're going to be running for council, I guess, 5 or 4. But anyway, here I bought this here. National Indian Country Conference tomorrow. It starts, I don't know if you guys got any, or maybe you guys didn't get invited. I don't know. It's in Missoula, Montana. It's at Holiday Inn. Starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow. and I'll be drum. I'll have a hand drum. They were trying to get me Kusum to go down and drum, but the school's still closed. So I told them I'll do it. You know, and they appreciate for me to go down there and say a prayer for them and go sit in with them. You know, I could leave this here and you guys could read through it. It's something about a lot of things I haven't even read through it. See, I'm a movie star, so I could say anything. But here we got this in Kusum. Cheney wasn't going to be there, but he wrote a booklet about Nkusum on page 8 and 9. And it's got our Nkusum in there. I believe this year. Yeah, a lot of it, but I didn't think I was going to come in today and you guys could look through it. You know, this is what Nkusum is. They learn how to cut meat, dry meat, make moccasins. Alan Pierre makes outfits for them, you know. And Cheney does he writes grants and he gets them. What is he going to use it for, you know? And that school is going really good, you know. It's going, you know, not just language, but making outfits, and their parents have to come in and make outfits. We got 57 children. They all got outfits, you know. And we have a little powwow once a month and they come in, you know, and they dance and just us, you know, just us, you know. And that's, it's something that the kids like, you know, dancing and singing. And we got 2 groups of drummers now, you know, and they got 2 drums. We want to sing, they got help, you know, it's just something, you know. And I went down to Blue Bay for their little thing down there, and that was good. And part the Kootenays and Ponderay Salish in one, you know, and they were showing all those things, you know. But anyway, I just come here to complain. I'm wearing my buffalo. I always cry. If you guys ain't going to go get it, hell, I got a truck. I'll just throw it in there, you know, and bring it back here, you know. We asked for 20 years for that buffalo, and pretty soon they'll be charging us. These white people, you got to watch, you know. Yeah, they'll be saying, hey, the tribe owes us this much. We gave it back to them, you know, and things like that, you know. And another thing I was happy about, they fixed the highway, you know, all the way up to my bridge, you know, and a few years ago, they fixed the bridge for me, you know, and things like that. I appreciate the tribe, the council, you know, to fixing all that stuff, you know, and little things, you know, that's big things, but little things to me. I appreciate that, you know. I'm an elder and I go around complaining, you know. You know, I don't know if it happens or not, you know, but I always could eat pizzas, you know. and things like that, you know. A long time ago, we used to all get together and eat and celebrate and just things like that, you know. Remember my grandfather used to dress up, clothes, you know, he had a suit, just to go to Ronan and sit there and visit with the other ones. Big hat, you know. Not to buy anything, they get up, well, let's go home, you know. And the elders used to have, they had a lot of lands, and the white people had their leasers. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to go see my white man. Go down there and how much you need? Write a check, you know, give it to him. Yeah, they all had suyapis, you know. I'm going to go see my suyapi. And things like that, you know. That's a lot of changes in this world. We got to help each other, you know. We got to help each other. You guys are the chiefs. We got to help each other. Help the elders too, you know. and things like that, you know. Some of these days, you guys are going to be elders, you know. Person, you'll be an elder, you know. All of us, you know, just going to be elders and help each other. My uncle used to say, it'll always come back to you. Do something good, allow. If you do something wrong, you'll be in jail. So anyway, I just come here when we're going to get our buffalo, our white buffalo, and things like that, and come and see our building, and I'm all excited for next Monday. We're going to have all our teachers back, you know, and have a meeting with them and see where we're at, you know. And I appreciate you guys supporting COSAM, Almo, elders, and all that. You know. We got to help each other, you know. It's all of us, you know. And just don't say we can't do it. You could do it, you know. That's why you're up there, you know. That's why I'm down here. I appreciate coming in and complaining to you guys and telling you how old I am, and I'm still dancing and still in the movies and still joking around. I don't care if anybody gets mad. You know? I don't care, you know. Talking to what's his name yesterday in a grocery store. Some white guy grabbed me and said, "Are you bullshitting to him?" You know, just right out like that, you know. And I didn't say nothing. Yeah. You got problems, guy, you know, not me. So anyway, today, I wish we'd shut this down for people moving in here, these white guys, and trespassing signs, and when they have a fire, they expect us to go up there, our tribe to go up there and put the fire out, you know. Damn, that's your land now, you know. What is, and the other thing is, we should tell them what the laws is before they move here, you know. We got laws here too, Indian laws, you know. You just can't come in here and start pushing us around. But anyway, I just come down and I told Juanita I'm going to go complain again. Oh, about the land, That's what I want to complain about. The council, the tribe should buy. There's only about 3 leases up there on my 2.5 acres, you know. And if they could buy that, you know, the tribe could buy it. I could pay the tribe the rest of it, you know. I bought three of them up there, you know. Then all that would be mine, that 2.5 acres, you know. So I don't know what kind of thing they got here when my mom was still alive. Yeah, they seen where we owned that land. She owned that land. Yeah. It went across the canal, you know. It went across the canal like boom, back this way, you know. So I don't know. And that road there, it was not really a gravel road. And when they hauled all that gravel from Pete Beaverhead's land, and they graveled that, you know. So it looked like a gravel road. Yeah. Then Job Corps made that road that goes all the way over to Swartz Lake, you know. And I don't even know why they put that there, you know. They closed it up now. People are going through there, you know. So kind of funny things happen up there, you know. Quite a good world, you know. But anyway, I just come here to complain and all that, you know. And I haven't been here three times that you had quarterly meetings, you know. I always have something else to do. Maybe I'll run for council. I ran for council one time. They put Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse won. You know. I didn't even vote for myself. So they said, "You should run, Steve. You really would talk Indian. You could really BS, you know." So anyway, I ran and I got beat out by Mickey Mouse. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here and thank you for listening. I won't be here for a while. But stop in at the school, you know. Look at your building, you know. It's really like a new building, you know. Thanks for listening, and I don't know who's gonna be running, and maybe Mickey Mouse again. I don't know, you know. Somebody put that in years ago, you know. And that's really come a long ways at the council. I remember when it was at the agency, and now here, and some even down at Ronan, they had the offices there. And to Eagle River School, I worked there for one whole year, you know. And when it was down there, then they moved up. A lot of changes here, you know. So anyway, I'm getting to be up there, you know, some of these days, you know. Help the elders. I always tell Joe Durglo, help the elders. I remember when Pat Pierre used to say, I used to go house to house to house, you know, asking them what kind of help they got. And they had one in Elmo. What was her name? She goes house to house to house. Now we don't even do that, you know. Some people can't even make it down there, you know, to get pills or whatever, you know, stuff like that, and get help, you know. Start changing your lives, you know. Start helping people out. That's what I'm asking for. If you don't, I'm not going to vote for you guys. I got a lot of followers. Oh, this is stuff going. Okay, that's all I got to say, and I got to go down the road and be happy. Be happy. Have a good life. Yeah, not wife, life. So here,
Stefan.
I'll be here another 3-4 months. I got more stuff to say, you know. for myself.
Always good to see you, Stephen.
Hope you.
Anybody got a question for Stephen? Yeah. Well, thank you. Wendy, go ahead and come on up. Good morning. Welcome.
Can you do it in the mic?
I'm here today to request some assistance for some homemaker help. In 2003, I had 4 strokes, and I have requested some homemaker because I can't do all the heavy cleaning like I used to. I only got one hand, and now my left leg is bad. And my right arm is bad. I fell last August. And I've been working through the doctors trying to figure out what's going on with my arm because it's weak and I dropping stuff, and I put in for homemaker, and I had first of all, my doctors wanted me to have 10 hours a week, and Kerr Elderly says they didn't have any workers so for years I went without any help. And so they told me, find somebody that you would trust to help you. And so I had moved my granddaughter in because I was living alone and I fall a lot. And then they kicked me off in Kerr Elderly because her income and my income was more than what their program said I could be there. And so I told her, either you quit your job or move out. So I got back on Kerr Elderly because she moved. And then I asked my daughter if she would fill out the paperwork for Kerr Elderly so I can get like 10 hours a week help. That's what their RN came in and assessed. That's what I'd need. And she's a success story. She had some childhood trauma when she was 14. And she had some drug and alcohol problems, and she has been clean and sober for 3 years. She's went back to school. She's
Currently, I'm
currently
going for my chemical dependency and trauma-informed certificate as well. The background check came back with a substantiation in 2014. And if that's the year, that would be the year that my eldest son's dad had overdosed. And so we're here today to see if you guys, I brought my, I got a letter of support. I've got a letter from my mom, and I've got my transcripts from SKC to see if you guys would be able to waive my background. I'm not applying, I'm a full-time student. I'm not applying for all the positions, just only for my mom. I do live next door from her. I'm just trying to, I've talked with, over at social services and up at personnel with Cynthia Matt. She said that she wouldn't be able to represent me in front of you guys because she made the determination. So that's why I'm here.
and she's got a 4.0 in college right now, and she's doing wonderful. And we need to lift these kids up that has some problems in the past. But what's going to happen when she gets her degree and wants to be an alcohol and drug counselor is that her past going to hold her up. We've all made mistakes when we were young.
Got a motion by Tom to waive the background for you to be your mom's helper, just for your mom. Second by Jimmy.
Thank you.
All in favor? We're unanimous, and congratulations on your sobriety.
But my-
And good luck in education, and yeah, you'll have to take care of that background
I
to
will.
move forward.
Right, she's doing wonderful. And
That's,
we as a tribe need to help these kids that have had problems in the past,
oh,
lift them up, not stomp them down.
totally agree, Wendy.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day. Steven, come on up.
Morning, guys.
Congratulations. Welcome, Steven.
How's it going? I don't have my IT guy with me to show you the results of our float that we had. But we had 44 people that participated. We pulled 4 new people off the streets that are in our program now. And it was a very good, successful day. And I want to thank you guys for that. We have one more event that we're going to do on the 16th. That I was seeing if I could get a fee waiver for that event. And that'll be the last one for the summer. That this event will be the same. We'll float, camp out. When we camped out this time, we got stuck at the ropes. They have a camping spot down the road, but whole bunch of people beat us to it. And so we camped out the ropes and we removed a whole bunch of cow poop and glass. And I mean, we cleaned it up really nice and made it look good before we, as we were setting up and when we left. And, it was kind of funny because we, we pulled up and my buddy Levi's like, oh man, our day's ruined now. We missed this spot. And, there was a sunshine coming through the clouds, and that's like God's beam, the creator's eye, right? And then there was a hawk flying over us. And I said, man, creator's telling us we're good right there. And so we camped out and made what we could of it. That was very awesome. He has a big slideshow to show you guys. Next time I'll bring him in with me. He's out of town right now, but a big slideshow to show you guys and pictures that we took. And man, it was so cool. It was so amazing. This time me and Juanita Reed will be celebrating our 6 years of sobriety on the 16th. So hopefully we'll have a pretty good outcome. And I'm gonna go down Wednesday and try to get the camping spot, and I'm gonna camp out all week till Saturday. So I just wonder if I can get one more fee waiver for the year for that event.
Questions for Steve? Motion by Lynn to provide the fee waiver for your group on the 16th. Second by Tom. All in favor? Unanimous.
Greatly appreciate it, guys.
Look
Yes,
forward
thank
to the slideshow.
Yes, I will. We will have 2 of them put together by then. So yeah, there was so many people that were like, this is our first time. We've never done this before. And it was so cool. Thank you guys.
Good job. Sonny, come on up. Oh. Good morning, Sonny. Hey, good morning, Sonny.
What?
Morning, Sonny.
Oh, good morning. Well, before I get started on my issue, I just want to reflect on some of the stuff Stephen talked about. And I remember a lot of that, what was going on about, like with Pete Beaverhead and stuff, because my stepdad, Bud Barnaby, was aware of that too. And then I ended up going with him to all these people, like he was talking about, the Incasholas, Beaverheads, and all these elders and stuff. And I would carry his reel to reel, set it up, and he would go in and interview them because he said that, we need to retain our history. And so I ended up giving all those tapes to the People Center because after he died and stuff, and then my mom wanted me to clean out her basement, and so there was all those boxes of reel-to-reel tapes that contained a lot of that stuff. And I didn't really listen to it, because I was kind of young, so I would go out and play and stuff when he would be talking with these people and stuff, but that's what they were talking about, was future. And we got to hold on to the past. And I used to listen to my Uncle John talk about that. I know next week on the 19th, my Aunt Angie will be 99. But John, he used to talk about Camas Ferry when he used to be said, there never used to be any fences out there. He said that you could look across at nighttime and there was no lights. He said pretty soon there was 1, 2, and pretty soon fences start coming up so they couldn't go across the prairie the way they used to do when they were kids. And through all these changes and stuff. And went through quite a few myself, but wish I'd have paid a little more attention when I was with my uncle. But yeah, that's when I was in the hospital, I seen all these people. Cause I didn't know if I was dying or not. Couldn't tell if I was awake when I'd be seeing them. And I know there's other people like that because when I used to go take care of my Uncle John, this time I came in and he didn't hear me, and I stood at the back door there, and I watched him. And he was sitting there at his table. And he was talking to Indian to somebody, like somebody was sitting in the chair at his table with him. And I watched that for a long time. And that wasn't long before he died, but it was like he was so clear because he had like dementia and he would go in and out. But whoever he was talking to, they were talking pretty good. And then finally he noticed me standing there, and then I tried to ask him who he was talking to, and then he goes, "Oh, I don't remember." But yeah, I just sat there and watched him, listened to him talk Indian and stuff like that. And like I said, when I was in the hospital, I couldn't tell if I was awake or dreaming of seeing all these people that I've known that was past. Never talked to him, but I could see him just like looking at these pictures here. It was like we were in different dimensions. It was I could see him, but it was like I couldn't communicate with him. Seeing my son Travis. And that's why I'm here today. Is because Sunday I went and brought his ashes to Moise to the Lozo Cemetery there, and then brought him up to Freeway, where my dad and them grew up at. And when I got there was this truck. It was pulled up over the back end was up down toward the creek. And when I went to go walk across where I put Travis in the creek on his birthday after he died, there was like big holes that somebody had been digging, and it looked like they're trying to pan for gold or whatever there. And I couldn't take none of Travis's ashes across, so Thomas did, because my foot's got open wounds and stuff, so I can't take showers or anything because I can't allow no water to get in there because they don't know what's in the water. So there was those people there that was there when we got there. And then when I start complaining, I was pretty loud about it because I was pissed off. And that's what I told him. I said, "You white people, you guys are always doing this." I said, ever since April 24th, 1974, when the BLM kicked the miners out of here and shut this place down, I said, "You guys have been coming up here digging for stuff that isn't yours, I said. This isn't only tribally owned land. I said, this is individual allotted land. So you need to put that up when you got your signs down there about needing permit and being on tribal land. You need to put no trespassing private property. Because they just act like, because nobody's there, that they can go about and do whatever they want to do. And there's like a couple spots right there, just across the creek from where my dad and him had like where he grew up and stuff. And then I put my dad's ashes in there in like 1989. And then I brought him up to those two mines that are the mine that was on where you go down just a little bit and go up the side of the road and you go up to the top. And then that one, they used to have a big wooden door on the entrance of it. And then in the early 80s, I noticed when I went up there one time that it must have been like one of those shafts collapsed, because you could see where it sank, where the top sank down. And then they had like a big wooden door on that mine shaft there. But I brought my dad's ashes in there, and then Thomas brought Travis in there. And that's where those guys went up, because while we were up there by the creek by where the house is, they said, oh, look at, there's those two trucks. That one has a big ladder in the back. Well, what they were doing was is they went and there's a shaft that goes when you're going up to that upper one to the top of the hill there. There's one on the side there, and that's where that kid had his truck parked. There was two. The Ford truck left down below. After that, that guy got mad. I don't know who he was. I don't know if he was Dan and Lindquist's dad or not, but he started hollering around at me about he paid $65 for a fucking tribal permit that he shouldn't have to pay for, and this and that, and this was a Lolo National Forest and stuff. And I said, well, I don't think this is a Lolo National Forest. I said, this is tribally owned land and individual allotted land. And then he goes, I suppose you're going to blame us for all this. And I said, of course, you guys are sitting here. I said, your truck's over the edge of the bank here, and all the stuff's dug up. I said, and there's where a campfire was. And I said, so yeah, I'm blaming you because you're the one that's sitting here. Because I didn't even know he was like down by the creek behind his truck. It was like he was hiding. And just that woman that was with him was sitting in the pickup in the cab. And then it was like they didn't know what to do. And then finally he got up, and then I got mad because I said, fuckers are cutting down the trees too. It was about this big, but they're all green. You know, there was just a couple of them there. And I don't know what they used them for. But yeah, I was starting to get mad. And so then he says, well, what about all the tribal members that are up here doing this? I says, it's not most. I said, I know there's some that probably come up here. I said, but not to do with this. It doesn't. I said, I had to come up here before. I said, and I had to get disgusted with them because somebody had went and set up like a paintball thing in the back where it would have been like where the backyard was from that little house that's on the creek there. Because when I was a kid, when I would go up there, I was like always wondering, and I didn't realize it was like the arsenic and everything that they leached the mine tailings with. They were going down, and it was like right behind that house. It was a great big area, and nothing grew, nothing, not even a weed or nothing. It would just look like sand, just dirt, and there was nothing there. And it was later on when I started learning about what they were doing there and stuff. And that's why I had to come to council one time to ask them what the hell they thought they were doing by taking those mine tailings, and they had them, they were like spreading them down the road. And they said, well, the post and pole cutters were complaining because, and I said, well, every spring runoff, I said, this happens in the woods no matter where you're at. I says, you know, I know you're trying to get up there, whatever. I said, but you know, the runoff's gonna be here because the snow's melting. I said, but you can't be taking these mine tailings and treating them like they're just regular gravel and putting them down the middle of the road and stuff like that. I said, with all this water running down through them, I says, do you even think about the people that are down the creek? I said, what about their aquifers and all that other stuff? And I said, you shouldn't even be moving those mine tailings. I said, because that's evidence of the crime of what all the minerals and stuff, the $242,000 worth of minerals that were removed out of there. And we never got 1 penny for it. I says, and then I had to, like, Virgil Dupuy was in lands and he was trying to tell me, no. He says, no, the tribe filed the lawsuit on behalf of the allottees for that. And I dug around and I found it in CL 779. And it's where the tribe had actually filed a lawsuit to try to recover all for the damages to the land up there and all the minerals removed. And they were denied, but it wasn't for the allottees at all. The only one that ever spoke up for the allottees was Eric Sharlock. And that was when he said that the allottees should be given all the mining claims that were removed from their allotments. They should be returned to them. And that's what I can't remember what that guy's name was, though Donovan Bolt was the superintendent then. And that's what he wrote when he went out, was that the land had to revert back to the allottees. And that didn't happen until I pushed that. And then in 1994, in July of 94, I created an allotment 6051 that was on 2891, because that's where the Mayflower was. And there's like different, you know, like there's like different acreages, because when the deed came through or whatever, I said, well, how come it's not what it says here? You know, I said it was 20 something. I said, now you said it's 18 something acres, and they even give it a, like I said, they give it an, I thought it would be like 2891B or something. They would name the Mayflower, but they just called it 6051. And then the tribe got to have another cutting. I said, that's 2 cuttings now. I said, you guys had the first cutting when the Granjo logging unit sale went through way back in the 50s and stuff. I said, you guys came through and cut there. Then I said, but now that this is like new land, I said, now you want to cut again. So I didn't argue about that anymore, but I was just pointing it out, you know. I said that, you know, that this is a lot of land that's ours. It's, you know, the heirs and stuff like that. And so when I was, like I said, when I was bringing Travis up there, before we brought some of him out to Camas Prairie, to the Curly Cemetery, and having to deal with those guys, and then but yeah, we took pictures of there's a Dodge truck. That's the one that the young kid said that, because when we were going up that road, then he was like right by that mine shaft there, and then he was coming out, and he had and it was those ramps for like putting a four-wheeler on the back of a pickup. He was taking those out of there, and then they must have been using them for ladders, so that must go in and go down. But he said that he was trying to get his dog out of there. I never seen a dog in his truck, and I never seen nothing, but he took those out and put those in the back of his truck there, and then that black Ford truck was up at the top there, and then that guy was hollering around again, and then he kind of like realized that I wasn't going nowhere, because then he goes, well, because then that kid came up and turned around after he got up there, and then he goes, well, what are you doing? And then that guy looked at me. He goes, well, I'm going to see what the hell this guy's doing. I said, I'm waiting for my son to come up here with his brother. I says, and then we're putting his ashes in here with my dad's. I said, so this isn't just a hole in the ground. I said, this is where my people are. And so then he took off down the hill, but then, you know, like my son had the road blocked down below. But in these pictures that I gave Mark, the Dodge truck was the one with had the kid that was supposedly lost his dog, and he was coming out of the mine shaft. And I've brought this up before that, you guys need to do what you started, like when the BLM kicked the miners out because they ruled that you couldn't have you couldn't have mineral entries on land classified as timber. That's how the miners got kicked out of there because those allotments in that area was declared to be timbered lands. And so that's where the BLM kicked the miners out, was because he couldn't have mineral entries in there, two land classifications for the same land. And when they got kicked out of there, the tribe had went up there and blew like the main shafts and stuff closed because people were going up there after the mining claims got shut down and stuff. And the only person that lived up there was Mabel Ashcroft, because they let her live there until she died. And then as soon as she died, then they went in and burned her house down and then took out the bridge that used to go across the creek to her house. And Ernie Ellsworth and all those other people that were part of these companies like the Green Mountain Company and Copper King and all that, because like when I was looking through this, Frenchie Berland was helping me and he gave me maps of the area, and it showed like where all the mine shafts and stuff were like that. And then like I said, Dean Gallino, right after the miners got kicked off in 74, then he was like one of the first ones that I seen up there, and then he was in there, and then that's what he was finding was like gold and stuff. And it's just been nonstop. Everybody, because there's nobody there. And like when I called Mark yesterday and told him about that, and he goes, well, when did this happen? I said, well, went up there Sunday. I said to bring my son up there. And he goes, well, I said, just like everything else, I said, it's a weekend. I said, it's like the game wardens and everybody else. It's like, it's their day off too, or whatever. They don't patrol or whatever, but you could see where there was fireplaces at the top of the hill and stuff too. And like down below when we were there, because I was kind of surprised when I went up there to take these pictures that when they was talking about the tribal member that was up there doing all this, they go, and I go, oh yeah, do you know who it is? And they go, yeah, it's Dan and Lindquist. And then right after he said that, and he goes, we're his people. So I don't know if that was his dad or whatever that was hollering around at me and stuff like that. But yeah, that's me and Dannon played on the same pool team for Calvin, and his name somehow got transferred onto my shirt here. And then when I got up there yesterday and I took my pictures and I was coming down, and then I passed the truck, and then so I just went down the road a little bit and I turned around and I came up, and then he was parked on the side of the road, and it was him and his girlfriend, and that's who it was Dan and Lindquist. And then he didn't know who those other people were. I said, yeah, I said they named you as the one that's up here doing all this. And then he says, oh, I didn't know that. He says, and I says, yeah, I said from both sides of this hills, I said, these are like where, I said, the Lozos had their allotments, I says, and then somebody came in and discovered all these minerals here, I said, and then pretty soon we were losing parts of our allotments to these mining companies. I says, and that's how all this got done here. And I says, and then he goes, well, they're taking mine tailings up. And I says, well, I couldn't remember. Mark told me that Mary Rose Morjo has a program with the tailings and stuff. And I said, well, I said that, I said, those are, like, I said, if you want to look at it technically, I said, that's evidence of, like the mining that happened there. And see, I used to talk to Evelyn Stevenson a lot because she was my dad's lawyer at one time. And she used to go up there and she used to like get the ones that were like, look like turquoise and must have been from the copper and stuff in it. but she would bring them to her house, and I says, you know that's been leached with poison and stuff, arsenic and stuff, I said. But she said, but it's so pretty and stuff, but it's just like, her even being the lawyer going up there and actually just trespassing and removing stuff. And that's what I told those guys yesterday, the other day, was when you're up here panning for gold and doing whatever you're doing, I said, you're stealing. I said, these minerals are not yours. I said, none of this is yours. I said, how would you feel if we went to your place and start digging around through your garage or your house or whatever? I said, it doesn't have to be like what you're doing here. I said, but I said, you're trespassing. I said, where you're at here, I said, your recreation permit doesn't allow you to be up here doing this. And so then, like I said, yesterday I called Mark and talked to him for a while. And then while me and Dannon was there, I showed him where Travis was in the creek at, because they grew up at Peachy too. And, and I told, and then, because my kids and Leslie's kids, they all played around together. And then I didn't know that Wynn died of something like what I got in my legs and stuff. I thought Wynn had just gotten so big that he had a heart attack, but I didn't know. He goes, no, he says, like what you have with you going on with your legs. He said, that's what happened with him. He says, and that's what killed him. He said he got healed once, and then same thing. He said he stepped on this thing and it scraped him, and then he ended up getting infected and dying. But he said he was all sorry about what was going on and gave me a hug. And I was telling him about the house and stuff. And I said, when my Aunt Tootie used to live at the end of Dixon a long time ago, I said she would get hungry for pan fryers, and then she would tell me to head up to Rive, and I'd go up to Rive. I'd ride my bike up there, and then fish those little dams and stuff that the trees cause across the creeks and stuff, and bring her pan fryers. And she says, you don't have to clean them or nothing. She just threw them in the pan, the whole heads, eyes, guts, and everything, and they was crispy, and she was happy and eating them. And it used to crack me up because she used to make me tea during the summer like this, and she would rinse out these old FI bottles, and that's what she'd put my tea in. Well, one day I was at her house, and then they had like a car seat by the house there, and then I got tired, and then somebody had seen me sleeping on that car seat with my jug of FI, and then there was Sonny Morjo showed up, woke me up, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, sleeping, I guess. And then he grabbed my bottle and he smelled it, and then I looked at my Aunt Trudy, and she started laughing. And I go, what? And he goes, he thinks that's what was in there before is like the wine that I drank out of it. But she would always just clean those bottles out, and that's what she'd give me the tea in, because I would take the bottle with me and head down to the river or whatever else. But yeah, that was kind of trippy waking up there. Sonny Morjo waking me up. I'm sitting there crashed out with my jug. But yeah, so I've been up there since the mid-60s was the first time I was up there. And then they burned out my dad. He inherited a building from his sister that was on her allotment. And then they didn't want my dad there because he was in and out of prison, like Steilacoom and stuff like that, McNeil Island. And he actually said that they were like shooting at each other, him and law enforcement, because he was trying to protect his house, but then they ended up just burning his house down. So he didn't have nothing to say that he had a reason to be there. So it's been an ongoing fight our whole lives. And while we were there yesterday, well, me and Dannon was down by the creek. Well, then I go, oh, look at that. I said, the government showed up, and it was Mark and Bigby. I don't remember his first name, but they gave me their card and stuff. And I told them that I was going to, I took these pictures, and then I said my son had some pictures on his phone. And I said, something has to be done. Because where these guys are digging right next to the creek and on the bank there, that took a lot of work just to dig this hole. It's not even as big around as this table here. But they got down there and there's like big rocks great big rocks that they had to take out that I couldn't lift one by myself. But we were like throwing all these rocks back into the hole. And then that's when I seen that guy come out from behind his truck and stuff. And then when Mark and them was there yesterday, we noticed that down below, they were like trying to dam up the creek too. And then there's like a hose that's probably about this big around, and it's pretty good length, and they must have been using it for like gravity flow to come up to go back into that hole, like to be panning for gold or whatever they were doing there. But on the other side of that, where that guy's truck was, you could see where they were starting to dig holes there. And, like that guy said, I suppose you're going to blame us for this. And I said, of course. I said, you're the one that's caught here. I said, I don't see nobody else here. I said, your truck's parked on, like over the bank down toward the creek. I said, I don't know why you're parked like that. And then, like I said, when they left, then they went up to the side of the hill, and they must have thought we were just gonna leave and go down. But you could, I gave Mark the same pictures that I got here, but they shows the holes that they dug and stuff by the creek, and then the mine shafts and stuff. And I just actually think that you just need to go up and blow all the remaining shafts closed, because like I said, I never seen a dog. Maybe that's what that guy was just trying to say, he had those things in there. And then, like I said, they must have been using those ramps for like ladders to go. I don't know how far that shaft goes in and if it goes down or whatever. But what if somebody's in there and like the shaft that collapsed up on top there, if they're in there, because those shafts are like probably over 100 years old, and if they're in there trying to dig around, maybe just a little like that will bring the whole thing down. And then how you gonna get somebody out of there? You just probably end up saying, well, they're just gonna have to put a marker out here at the end here. Or does anybody even know that they're in there? Like if they had a rig there and somebody says, well, I'm just going to end up taking this rig because it's been abandoned here and there's nobody come back to get it. Nobody knows that they're in there. But like in your Constitution for public safety and stuff like that, that's what they use as an excuse for going up there and blowing those shafts shut when miners first got kicked out of there. Was because people were going up there and going in there and stuff like that. And I'm just saying, just finish the job and just blow all these other ones shut too, before somebody does get hurt.
Sonny, appreciate you coming in. You've already notified Mark of what's happening there, and I hope we'll take and survey all that you're talking about there. And as you say, there's not only tribal land, but there's individual allotments, and it sounds like you're asking for better signage that says.
Yeah, so
No
it
trespassing.
just doesn't have, like, they have the green signs, that says you have to have a permit and whatever, because you're up there, and that, you just need to put like no trespassing private property,
Yeah.
because I know it doesn't do no good because that's what I told that guy. I said, if I had the money, I'd have to be putting up gates all the time. I said, because there's nobody up here to watch the gates. I said, when they put up gates somewhere, I said, then the gates get tore down or whatever. I says, and then you guys keep coming back in.
Yeah,
I said, so,
I understand, and so I think we've heard what you're talking about, and that hopefully can find some way to affect this trespass and stop it, but
yeah,
You
because
know
they're up
people.
there just throwing their cigarette butts. There's just like all kinds of cigarette butts laying around there, and
well, I understand. Has anybody got questions for Sonny? We do need to move on, and I think your issue's a very valid one, and it sounds like you got it already in the hands of Mark, and so
yeah, well, I was glad that he showed up there because I've heard a lot of, like a lot of people say that he doesn't return phone calls or nothing like that. And I said, oh, I didn't have no problem. I said, I just called the 2700 number and asked for Division of Lands and asked for him. And then he answered his phone. I said, and I told him what was going on. And then I said, then when I was up in Rive, I said, then he showed up there.
yep,
I
appreciate
said,
that.
so I can't really have nothing bad to say about his not responding to his phone call or, taking it lightly because, like I said, while I was up there and talking with Dan and then they showed up.
Appreciate that.
Well, I appreciated him showing up too because it, it was like it was important enough for him to go look,
Yeah.
which meant to me that he was doing his job. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sonny.
And one other thing, they're probably going to shut off my water here pretty soon again. And they went and did exactly what I told them not to do. And I wrote a thing up there. They're not sticking my final disconnect notices on my front door where I asked them to put it. They're sticking them to my no trespassing sign on my blue shed that goes around to the back of my house. And that's where I just noticed it was taped there. I didn't go look at when the date is. They're going to shut off my water and stuff. But again, that falls in our constitution under your health, the health part, where does my health come in, because without electricity and without water, running water, that creates a sanitation problem. So yeah, because like I said, when I have to pay for all these other things, I don't have $80 to pay housing for the water. Because that's what I told them, I said I shouldn't have to pay for water. They say, what they tell me is you're not paying for the water, you're paying for the service. And I said, well, all this service should be supplemented through a grant or something where nobody should have to pay a water bill. I said that should be granted to us. I said, if you have to take some of that water compact settlement money to pay for each individual's I say $80 because they always put $10. It's $70, but then they got $10 late fee. So I usually have to pay $80 because I'm buying propane for my cook stove that I'm using, gas for my generator, gas for my vehicle so I can get to my doctors and stuff like that. And I don't have a whole lot of money. I get $676 or $764 a month. And then I get commodities. And then right now I'm having to pay for some of my medical stuff because when I talked to that Nicole Main yesterday, she said, oh, well, some of your stuff, you and about 5 other people's stuff, there wasn't room on the van or the truck or the delivery truck or whatever. So I'll be getting some of my supplies either today or tomorrow. But yeah, and that's just what's gonna happen is, I don't know. Take housing to court for endangering my health, exercising my constitutional right. You guys use it every time you pass a resolution of, you know, the safety and public, public safety and health. Well, where does my health come in?
Thank you, Sonny. We will take 5-minute break. Are you Holly this morning, Mark?
Apparently so.
Okay. We got a bunch of resolutions, it looks like.
Yes, I do. Not a ton of them. Already?
I think we're ready.
All right, Tribal Lands is coming in today for land acquisition purchase resolutions, needing tribal council approval. Resolution approvals will be for Billy Stinger property up in Lozo. Iris Kai's postal property, John Matt and Christian Peter Matt down in Racehorse Gulch, down in the Perma area. And Kenneth Dupuy acquisitions, 1914B and so forth, the ones up in Polson and in Big Horn.
Guess we'll take these resolutions one at a time. Is
Motion, Mr. Chair.
that collective on all of them?
I'll do the first one.
Okay. Motion by James, second by Lynn on the Stinger property. All in favor? Unanimous. I think Kayai property's next. Motion by Lynn,
Second.
second by James. All in favor? Right here. We're unanimous. The
Motion on the next one.
The next ones would be for John Lewis Matt.
motion by James. Second by Tom. All in favor? Unanimous. Then another Matt.
Motion.
Christian Peter Matt.
Motion by James. Second by Bain. All in favor? Unanimous.
Motion on the next one.
This is the next one.
Ken Dupuy.
Yeah. Motion by James
Yeah.
on the Ken Dupuy property, second by Tom. All in favor? Unanimous.
1914B, it's the one set I remember all of.
1914B is the big flat area behind Betty's Diner. The other one was 1914A that has a cleanup on it, agreement with them in place. Then we also have, and I can never remember them, 2014A. Trying to remember if that's the one up on Skyline there, or if that's the one in Big Arm. And
Do you want votes on each one, or is one vote for Dupuy property? Okay,
I think we could probably put all Dupuy properties
in that last
in
motion.
that whole groupie.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Good. And that passed unanimous.
All right,
Is that it for lands?
that is it for tribal lands.
Cool. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, guys.
More than less, come on up.
Good morning, Council, Mr. Chairman. I think I've got an easy issue ahead of you today. It's more or less an update. If you recall, we want, well, first of all, the reasons we want to net north off the reservation are because of the data that we've been collecting that show us that our catch rates on the reservation are precipitously dropping off compared to our monitoring netting off the reservation. So we think if we were to go a little farther north off the reservation, would increase our catch rates, which would reduce costs. It would also mean that we would potentially catch less bull trout for the same amount of net put out, same amount of effort. So it would reduce our bycatch, and it would also allow us to achieve our goal much quicker. Those are the three main reasons for doing this that we've expressed to the state of Montana. And then if you read the document in front of you, the issue brief, if you recall, I talked about using the bull trout interagency recovery team as a venue to kind of vet this out and get support. So I did that, and at a technical level within that group, we've got that support. I mean, the data are pretty obvious and pretty much in their faces. It would still be a little bit of an experiment because we really don't know until we do it. So what we proposed to them was, let's prove the concept up. Let's net north and see if it improves our catch rates and therefore achieves our goal quicker. If it doesn't, we don't want to go that far either. Well, we'd back down, but we're pretty confident that we'd do much better if we did that. Now, at a technical level, they were fine with that. When it got elevated to what they call their executive team, and there's one member from every entity on that team. It's 8 federal entities, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and then us. They were quite hesitant to take a position on it. The state was surprised, and one of the federal entities was surprised. He was kind of new to the game, but it's just the politics of today with the feds. They're just, especially on conservation issues related to ESA, those kinds of things, they're just very worried about taking any kind of position on that stuff. So we did not get outward support from them to do this. I thought we could get support from the BERT, do some PR with the state, and then that would give the state a little bit of cover for their constituents out there. So it didn't really work out that well. But since then, I've been talking to the state all the time, both in Region 1 and Kalispell and Helena, and they're kind of with us. They just want to remain neutral. They don't want to openly take a position, no out-facing PR on this stuff. We just said we'd do it and deal with it as it comes up. What we're committed to doing with the people in Kalispell is giving them the exact timing and the where of our netting activities. And then again, they'll just respond to the public as it comes up, as will we. But they're the ones that'll might get some anger out of this from their constituents. And if they're smart and want to remain neutral, which is what they want to do, they're just going to say, kind of what's the problem? The tribes have been doing this for years now. We do, and the state participates in MAC days off the reservation, so they got their hands a little dirty anyway.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I got a problem with the response on trying to obtain their support because we're exercising our treaty right.
Right.
And we shouldn't have to obtain any kind of support from any entity. And we're managing the lake and we're using our fishing rights to do it.
Correct.
And so I don't know at least for me, I don't want to be concerned about, what the public or any kind of public outcry or what they're thinking. And this is a tribal operation, and I just have trouble on that our staff is concerned about getting support from various staff or committee or groups out there. We have a plan in place. I think we just move forward with it and do it. And sure, there's going to be public outcry because there's always will be. The tribes have always been have always been criticized for these kinds of projects, but I think I think we just move forward full steam ahead and do what we need to do to try to manage the lake as we have planned for the last 30 years. So anyway, thank you.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I believe the legal department would absolutely agree with you. And I don't know why I'm sugarcoating it for the state. I even thought this was a way for them to get back on co-management and sharing the successes, but at this point, I'm a little bit like you. I don't think we need to share the success now if they don't openly show us some support. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to update you on the Burt. I thought it was a good idea, it didn't work out, shouldn't have gone there anyway. And I want to make sure you understand that unless you say no today, I'm actually asking for approval to go ahead and implement the management goals and net north starting September. We're more or less deliberately waiting till then because that's when the lake activity cools down anyway. It might completely go unnoticed for all I know, but by that time, a lot of the activity on the lake's winding down, but that's what we want to do.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I make the motion that the fisheries program actively nets the entire lake as appropriate.
Motion by Tom to move forward with our plan to net north of the boundary. Second by Lynn. All in favor? It's unanimous.
Les, after we go up north a few times, it'd be really interesting to know what the numbers are.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be interested. And like I say, we're not doing this to stir things up. We're doing this because we think it will be more effective. And we want to prove that point. Because to go that far north, actually, on the other hand, costs us more money to run that far north. So it's a little bit more expensive. And so we wouldn't, that's why in the past we really haven't done it. We haven't needed to. But the data at this point tell us that it would be more cost effective to do that. So thank you. We'll get back to you with the numbers.
Thank you, Les. Have a good day.
Dana is on Zoom.
Dana, are you available? There you
I
are.
am.
Go ahead.
I'm here to do a contract modification for our USDA LFPA grant. And we're looking at changing Western Montana growers from $600,000 to $650,000. And this will complete our food box project we've had for the last couple of years.
Any questions for Dana? Go ahead, Len.
So, Dana, just out of curiosity, what exactly do we do with these funds?
These 100% of these funds are used to purchase procure locally produced foods, and then we put them in the boxes. So these are the food box distributions we've done for the last couple of years.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion by Len to go forward with the modification. Do I have a second? Second by Jimmy. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Come on up, Sean. Morning. Guess it's still morning.
Good morning, Chairman and Council, and thank you for having me this morning. I'm here today requesting approval for two sole source contracts, one with New Mexico Consortium for a little over $5.3 million and one with Northwest Management for $100,000. I'll give you some background on this. And I should have probably put this on my notes when I put in the request, but back in 2021, I came to council for a request for a sole source contract with NMI for LiDAR acquisition within the reservation boundaries. It was approved. We did fly our entire reservation. We have a state-of-the-art inventory with LiDAR. The DBH and height of trees is very accurate. Our species composition is about 90%, or sorry, about 70% accuracy. With these efforts, with the terrestrial LiDAR scanning and the drones, that's down to like centimeter resolution. Whereas our previous 21 aerial LiDAR is at a 10-inch resolution. So that's able to get us to better refine our current inventory. I will say that we are across the board top in the nation with our inventory, and we're only making it better with these efforts moving forward. And then this current project spans into, as you notice, I always forget about this thing. So it goes. Okay, there we go. It goes beyond the reservation into our entire ancestral lands. This will give us a state-of-the-art fire risk map so that when people want to do collaborative projects, we will have the best state fire risk map using the best technologies available. Actually, we are kind of the pioneers in these efforts. We're kind of a guinea pig, I guess. No one else has these technologies. I will say that we're working very closely with the fire lab out of Missoula. Originally, the agreement was going to be with the Forest Service specifically for the fire lab, but because of everything that's going on with the agencies, we pulled that back and said, well, let's funnel this through the tribe, and then we'll work with this New Mexico consortium. The folks that we are working with at the fire lab, they are actually tied in with the New Mexico consortium. So if the fire lab, which it sounds like they're protected for now, but if they do go away, those people working on these efforts will be covered. I've got them. I got Russ Parsons back, I'll put it that way. I don't know if you know Russ Parsons, but he's a crazy mad scientist. And this is, Daryl's not here. Daryl Claremont, this is funded through the fuels program. So I work very closely with Daryl Claremont, and I want to make it very clear that, without his support and cooperation, these efforts would not exist. So I know he was busy this morning. He was going to try to make it here, but yeah, this is all through the fuels program that I work very closely with. It's a 5-year project, total of about $5.6 million. There is going to be some workshops involved with this. So one thing that we've, not only CSKT, but other agencies, is we have this awesome data that's just sitting on a computer and we don't know what to do with it. Like I have Najoni Harvey, who is tabbled around and she's able to process some stuff. So the workshops are going to teach people how to work with like the point cloud data, the raw LiDAR data, which is something that we really don't know. We have our Forest View web application through our aerial LiDAR, and that's kind of like a view only scenario where you could click on a stand, you could see how much board feet you have, what the majority of the composition is. And that's where the 100,000 for Northwest Management is. We're actually, with this new data, we're going to update that dashboard. And I'm hoping that when we're done, our species composition will be closer to like 90%. So I'm hoping to get a little more accurate. It's pretty hard because when needles are only a couple centimeters, couple inches, depending on what you're looking at. But it's a 5-year project. Really, a lot of cool data is gonna come out of this. The, the other thing the other app that we're currently working with the fire lab is, it's called the Cruise Assist. And we used this in the field a few weeks ago. It's really cool. So it's a application on your tablet. And when you get to your plot, it shows you your boundaries and you can walk around your plot and just like you're taking pictures, and it gives you this DBH, height, and all that. So it's a little more accurate than your terrestrial LiDAR scanner, because your terrestrial scanners, you put it plot center, you scan. And so if you picture like a big tree with a little tree behind it, those are called ghost trees because it misses those. So with the Cruise Assist, you'll capture all that info. And then with the drones, same thing. I came to you guys for permission to get drones, and I currently have a 350 RTK with drone capability or LiDAR capabilities. So thank you. But yeah, that's what I'm here for today. I know it's a lot. I could probably have Russ talk all afternoon about this if you want to go into the detail, but any questions?
Tom and then James.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the one question, and I'm assuming this when I read it, that one of the potential outcomes is that we would have more flexible window of opportunity to do prescribed burns.
Exactly. So I totally skipped that. So there is a new prescribed burn application that we've been working with the fire lab. We've actually done some presentations over the last couple of years at this ITC symposium, and they're still fine tuning that. So you can, and we've done this in Dog Lake area, which overachieved on their burning. But anyways, you could get a stand, you can input the weather data forecasted, you can select the amount of torches, drip torches you want to put, and the wind and all the topography, all of that stuff. So you could get a very accurate prediction of what your fire is going to do. And on one of them, it was pretty accurate. The other one, we had this freak windstorm come in, and it was not something we wanted to show at the symposium. But, you know, Mother Nature's Mother Nature. It does what she wants to do. And yeah, you could predict all you want, but things change.
James, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. My questions are, is this something that we can market to other tribes or other entities, the experience that you all have learned in this? And then the other one is, can this technology be used for lands department or NRD, you know, those kind of things?
Thank you so much for that question, because that's another huge step that I forgot to mention. We labeled it the Blueprint Project because, like I said, we're the initial tribe supported by the BIA to do this project. And the ideal is that once we get this all figured out, get it ready to go, we're going to share that with other tribes, not the data, but the process. And then so other tribes can benefit. And that's why Mark Jackson with the BIA is so supportive of this project, because eventually it's going to help other tribes. And we're going to be the pioneers in this process. So it's really, and here's Daryl Claremont. Like I said, he's been a great support.
I'm wondering if this technology can be used for like the lands department.
Internally.
All the different, internally.
Exactly.
All the different properties that we have and such.
It could be used by lands, it could be used by hydrology, it could be used by wildlife. The only problem is right now, we have the dashboard, you could look at it, nobody knows how to work with it. The process through this, we're gonna have workshops to train and teach people. So probably about 2 years ago, we realized this need to educate people on how to use this data. So we reached out, we were trying to, you may be familiar with Salish County College has a GIS certificate program. We were going to create something very similar where it was a LiDAR certificate program. We have a full curriculum and everything, did the full proposal. We were not successful with securing funding, but we're kind of hoping that if we prove these workshops are successful, then maybe we could go back, maybe try to find other opportunities to get a LiDAR certificate program at Salish Kootenai College. So yeah, it could be used by all of our natural resource departments, definitely. And I do, Tom McDonald, I do have one of my employees are going through the drone program at Salish Kootenai College through trees. So we utilize SKC a lot.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Sean, thank you for that information. I think one of the issues that really always concerns me when we're asked to approve a sole source multi-million-dollar contract is what kind of opportunities are going to be available for our any tribal member contractor, any tribal member. Is a contract like this, are we do we have to comply with the Indian Preference Office? In other words, are we paying that 3% fee of this contract to address that? And what kind of opportunities are going to be available for the membership on something like this? I know it's difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
because of the scope of that, but when we're talking about a huge contract like this, the members ask questions and they want to know if you're giving a multi-million-dollar contract to an entity out of state, how exactly is that going to benefit them?
How does it benefit? Exactly. And this group of researchers are really like, they're the only ones who have this technology. They're the only ones capable of doing all of this. So we do have CSKT portion. CSKT does have a small portion. I think it's like 300,000. But where it does benefit tribal members is that if moving forward, because there's this big effort with the executive order on Forest Service land to work with tribes to increase timber production. We're hoping that with these efforts, we can expand into our ancestral lands, hopefully secure some collaboration partnerships with other agencies, and hopefully allow that to be offered to tribal members.
Okay, Sean, just a quick question. Just thinking out loud here. So CSKT Division of Fire was awarded this specific grant so they can award this specific company for this project.
Yeah, I don't think it's technically a grant.
And the reason why I ask, because you guys said you didn't advertise or do an RFP or anything, and so I was just wondering how that all worked.
So it's coming down through the fuels program. And it's generally, it would be an RTRL project, but it's not funded through RTRL. It's the general fuels funding is how it's coming down. So it's basically like any of our other fuels projects, except for the fact that this is not really doing any actual field work. This is all office work, basically.
Data collection.
Data collection. So I don't know if Sean talked about the project, but so there's a lot of different things going on in this project. Ancestral ground and getting information using LiDAR on ancestral ground is part of that. There's also through Russ Parsons at the Fire Science Lab, He's got a group that is in the process of developing a bunch of software that eventually will probably be what all fuels and firefighters use to predict fire and model fire. So we're helping to develop that, and at the same time, we'll be one of the first ones to learn all these programs, which will help our program. The other thing is I know Sean talked about this, but there's the LiDAR data, both aerial and ground LiDAR, that right now is kind of becoming very popular, but hardly anybody, there's only a few people in the nation who really know how to even use this stuff. And it has to be processed in order to actually use. MC or NMC is one of the few places that can do this.
I think they're the only one that we could send our terrestrial scanner data to. I don't know of anyone else. There might be,
Yeah.
but that's the only one I
Yeah,
know.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I do. It's just the thing is when the membership asks us, how does this benefit how
I
does
guess-
this benefit the tribe, you know?
I guess
We
this
have to
is-
explain,
this is
we have
what
to
I-
explain that. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding of.
Yeah,
This
this is what I would say. We didn't technically, I did not go after this project. I got drug into this
But
project.
I understand how it benefits us, but I'm just trying to say, how do I explain that to the membership when they ask us, when
Oh,
they see
that's-
this in a minute?
That's where I was going is,
Yeah.
so Mark Jackson got a hold of us and basically drug our hand into this project. So there is money coming to the tribe that will stay with the tribe, that provide a job. And then we'll be able to buy stuff with some of this money. If we weren't doing it, there's another tribe that would be doing it. Probably Warm Springs. Probably a tribe down in, probably San Carlos.
Yes, I'm color, so.
White Mountain, probably, they would be doing this. They would be the forefront in all of this. But because of our program and what we've done in the past and what we've shown we can do, Mark Jackson picked us. It is an odd project, I'll give you that, because we are pushing, just funneling a lot of money, but end results should benefit not just us, but all of the tribes, in the nation, so.
Well, you're talking about having raw data right now that basically you can't use for much anything because you don't know how to interpret it.
Right, other than a dashboard that,
Yeah.
the dashboard isn't doing us any
And
good, I don't even
hopefully
use
through
it.
this process, you'll turn that data into a usable form that might make a difference when you're out there on a prescribed burn.
Yeah,
Right.
we are actually, and this is new to him, but, we're planning our first workshop this fall. So. And
Right.
that's, working with the point cloud data.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, what I like about it is, yeah, you've been picked out. Gives us the opportunity to be first in the country, to work on this game, first in the country. Gives you the edge to be able to set up those partnerships with the National Forest Service and our ancestral landscape to provide that service. And so I would say that it gives us an edge for prescribed fire, predicting wildfires, you know, the whole thing, the whole fire game, which then also provides an opportunity for our contractors to get out there and help with prescribed burning off the reservation, not just on the reservation, but it's a technology. Once you master it, you become in demand. And so
Exactly.
if you have that edge, then you're on the leading edge. So I think it's a good deal.
Exactly, you hit it perfect. We are gonna be the leaders in the nation, and moving forward, if we want to work on some collaborative projects, we've got state-of-the-art technology.
Motion by Bing to move forward with both the sole source for basically the data analysis as well as, what do you say the other 100,000 for?
For Northwest Management, for the dashboard.
And second by Tom. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Daryl. Have a good day.
Can we
Okay.
go into executive for legal update?
We can go out of regular into executive. Care of that. So. Amendments to the corporate,
So moved.
Motion by Tom to approve the modification of EKI corporate documents. Second by Jennifer. All in favor? Unanimous. We'll break for lunch.
Thank you.
1:30 for sure. Before that, if you got questions. Well, welcome everybody. I hope you're having a good tour of our homeland. So. It sounds like you'll have a really good tour tomorrow, so that should be fun. Yeah. Okay. We can do introductions. We can go across the council here. Start, Bing, could you start it and we'll go across council and get all introductions?
Yes. My name is James Matt. Everybody called me Bing around here, but I'm a at-large representative from the south end of the reservation up here. And so welcome to our home.
Yeah, James Steele Jr., Louis Quest. I'm the current treasurer. Two-term chairman about 15 years ago. So I'm in chairman recovery.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tom McDonald, I'm the vice chair. I'm at large, so I represent the entire reservation. I'm a retired Fish and Wildlife Manager for the tribes. And I currently sit on the IJC governance board. There's some folks here I recognize that are partake to that. So I want to thank you for coming, particularly for that issue. Thank you.
I'm Mike Dawson. I'm acting chairman. I'm actually the representative from the west side of the reservation, the desert side. So.
Good afternoon. Jim Alter, I represent the Arlie south end of the reservation, shared with Big Matt, and welcome.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Finley. I'm the councilwoman from the Polson District. I'm a former English teacher and a journalist, and welcome to the reservation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I want to welcome you all. My name is Len Two-Teeth. I currently represent the Elmo District, which is the Tri-Cities of Elmo, Dayton, and Big Arm on the north part of the reservation. So, thank you, and once again, welcome.
And it's Len's birthday. Go ahead, Aaron.
Rich made me come up here. I'm Erin Sexton. I'm with the University of Montana Flathead Lake Biological Station. I'll be on your tour tomorrow, and I work alongside the tribe on the transboundary Kootenai mining issue and a little bit on the CFAC work as well.
Chauncey Means, Division Manager, Environmental Protection. I am the manager of a lot of our EPA programs.
And hi, everyone. I'm Jason Gilday with EPA Region 8. I'm the Water Policy Advisor and the lead on the Kootenai River International Joint Commission work, among other things, and recognize several of you. Good to see you again. Thank you for having us.
And I'm Cyrus Western, the Regional Administrator for Region 8.
Hi, my name is Danny Heffernan. I work for Cyrus in our Region 8 office out of Denver. And I see that online we're joined by some of our colleagues also. Kim Verilek, who's our Tribal Affairs Director, Ben Carlson, and Charles Van Otten as well as online. And then I'm just going to also introduce Anna Walker. She's a videographer, photographer individual with our office as well. And so she's hiding over there in the corner. So, and I'll pass it along.
Hi, thank you for having us today. My name is Allie Archer. I'm EPA out of the Helena office, and I'm the Superfund project manager for the Smurfit-Stone and Columbia Falls sites.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate you meeting with us today. My name is Carolina Blue, and I'm in the Helena office along with Allie. I'm the Montana Superfund Section Supervisor.
Good morning, everyone. Rich Jansen, Department Head of Natural Resources for the Salish Kootenai Tribes, and I did get a visit briefly before, so I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
We have a few folks behind you.
Good afternoon, Randy Ashley. I'm the Air Quality Program Manager, just air quality. And if you remember Subutai and Conan the Barbarian, his gods were the everlasting wind and they ruled above everybody else, including water. No, just kidding.
Randy's been with us almost 30 years from flagship program. Chris.
I'm Chris Stark. I'm the staff scientist for the legal department here at CSKT.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I met most of you already out in the hallway, but Dan Decker, managing attorney for CSKT. Also have some staff attorneys online. John Harrison, Chelsea Colin, and Lindsay Gaudioso, and Mary Price, another scientist with the tribes.
And I think we also have Evan on. Can you introduce yourself, Evan?
Yes, hello, Evan Smith, Program Manager for Water Quality.
What's your burning question?
Mr. Chairman, I was just had a couple of brief remarks, if that's okay with you.
That would be great.
First, I just want to start off by, I really want to thank you and your colleagues for your time. I know we all lead busy lives, but I think this relationship between the agency and the tribe is really important. I absolutely view it as a government to government engagement, to engage and confer. And that's certainly one of the things I want to achieve in my time here, my brief time. Heard member Edwards, he's a famous NFL football coach. He said, as a player, you rent the jersey, and as a coach, you rent the whistle. And that's kind of how I'm trying to approach my time. I'm only here for so long, but I'm not going to come here and say we're going to solve every problem and get everything buttoned up and done. But I certainly want to come in and make progress and certainly want to leave it in a better place and go further along down the path of solving some of these problems. I'm not going to try to oversimplify them. They're serious, they are complicated, but that's certainly my intent. I just want to make sure that you know that my staff is always here, and I always want to have these conversations, whether it's around Superfund issues or water issues. I know that these are really important to you, and they directly impact you because you have to live here, right? This is your home. You guys don't know any other home, and so I appreciate how seriously these issues are to you. And so I more than anything, I want you to know that there is an open door. I can't promise you that we're always going to agree, but I will always promise respect and just being really honest. So I appreciate your time, and more than anything, I want to come and sit down and hear what you have to say. And I know that these are issues that take up a lot of your time and energy, and that you guys care deeply about. And so I think with building any sort of relationship, it starts with listening and hearing what the parties have to say. And so that's part of the reason I want to come up here today, was to really engage you and hear what your thoughts are and what your concerns are. And if you have questions, that's part of the reason why I brought all my staff up here, so we can get you the best answers that we possibly can. So thanks you again. We really appreciate your time.
Appreciate that. And I guess just as a couple opening remarks from us, as I don't know how versed you are in our history, and that our reservation was actually established in 1855 by the Hellgate Treaty, and that a lot of our claims come from the guarantees the federal government made to us as we made that contract with them back in 1855. Reservations were established in several ways, and when we established this reservation, it was us who reserved the land to ourselves. It wasn't the federal government giving us land. It was us reserving our homeland and actually ceding to the federal government. And as part of that, we retained economic interests off the reservation throughout our ceded areas. And that's where some of our claims come from. The fact that we retained those rights and never granted those to the federal government. Rights to hunt and fish in our Aboriginal territories, in open unclaimed areas, in the accustomed places that we always fished. And so those were Aboriginal rights that we retained and never passed to the federal government. And so that's why we have such a strong claim. It's not something regulated by the federal government. It's not something that the federal government gave us. It's something we retained when we made that deal. And so it's never been in the hands of the federal government. And that's why it's so important for us to protect these interests, these off-reservation interests, these interests in our Aboriginal territory. So that's where our claims come from with respect to all these sites we're talking about. So, anybody want to add? Go ahead, Tom.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was a good review of that. And we also view then the federal agencies as a trust responsibility to also look at those resources that are important for us. As you look above us, you look at those buffalo up there, that was the one of our main food sources. And the other main food source was bull trout, West Slope cutthroat trout that existed here. And to a lesser degree, the lingcod or burbot or mountain whitefish and some other native fish species. But when you think about when we went and our tribes were the really old tribes of this state in this area. Before horse, we had permanent villages all over Montana, eastern Montana. And then after horse came, there was some other tribes started to come into Montana territory and things changed. And we kind of retreated to our homeland here in western Montana. And there's 3 tribes really in our tribes. There's the Druid Salish, there's the Gillespie or Kalispel people of this valley all the way up to the border. And then our Kasanka or Kootenai people, they're also in the Flathead Lake region all the way up into British Columbia. And so that's the 3 tribes. There's 3 tribes here on the reservation. And so we're protecting the interest of all those tribes into Canada and into Idaho and eastern Washington, down into Wyoming for that matter. So we really take that pretty seriously. But that innate respect for fish comes from the fact that we owe our existence to bull trout in particular. They existed everywhere. They were our resident salmon. So when we ran low on food, or moose or a bison harvest or any other thing, you could always go to these local streams and rivers and pull out big bull trout. And a lot of the first Europeans as they came through here, like Lewis and Clark and other people, they were starving to death. And when they ran into the Salish in particular, they're really happy because they said, well, we'll take care of you. And they run down to the creek and bring some fish up to them. So how'd you know how to do that? And it was just amazing. So that to have that innate respect also goes to the fact that we owe them. It goes even beyond that right of gathering, is that we owe them our existence. And so when we look at impacts to water quality and fisheries, we're bioaccumulating toxins, or we're drying up rivers, or we're warming up this, and the habitat changes. That's a detriment to a species that we owe our existence to. And it goes to the same thing of protecting that right. If they're not there for us to harvest, then that's a violation of our treaty right. That's a violation. That's a breaking of the treaty. So we really want to enforce that. We want to encourage our federal agencies, and in particular, when we talk about this transboundary issue with Canada, we really want to thank you. You've got a great staff, and Jason's done a wonderful job. I can't be any happier with EPA in our relationship to this particular issue as far as the Elk River mining, the pollution coming down from the massive open pit and mountaintop leveling that's going on up there, and the selenium that's coming downstream. The partnership that we have with EPA has been wonderful. I want to thank you for that. We hope that continues. We really appreciate the Transboundary Watershed grant that you gave us. And that's really going to help us out for the next 3 years with staff and water quality sampling. That's absolutely wonderful. We have, A lot more to do, though. We'd really like to be able to look at the entire watershed of the Kootenai River and do an assessment on it and be able to identify, all the impacts that are there, because it was a really wise Gillespie man, a medicine man here. And a long time ago, we were reviewing our own river out here that comes out of Flathead Lake and trying to identify the impacts of the dam that was there. And he said, you know what? A lot of people just focus right on the wetted perimeter of the river, bank to bank. But he said, rivers are always wider than they seem. And it's really the entire drainage. It's mountaintop to mountaintop. It's all those streams and how it all plays together. So the water impact might be just, you think in the water column, but there's those other terrestrial animals and wildlife, birds and other species that are affected by the water pollution that could come out of that. And so that's really important for us. And the quality of all that for subsistence, hunting and gathering is really important for our people. People say, well, it's different today. It's not different for our people. Our people continue to hunt and fish. And even though we may have mainstream type jobs and other things that are going on, that hunting and gathering has not gone away. It is absolutely paramount in the lifestyle of our people. So we really, really want to maintain that opportunity. So, as far as setting up the joint reference, implementing the Boundary Water Treaty, again, the support from EPA, it was paramount in doing that. And so, and then to recognize tribes as a voice in that, in the IJC, is the first time that's ever happened in the history of the Boundary Water Treaty Act. And so that's huge, absolutely huge for us and the Canadian tribes to be able to have a voice, sit at the table with everybody else, not just the federal agencies and state agencies and whatever other stakeholders it might be. That's the first time that's happened. And you're part of that. You've been supporting that. EPA has been supporting that. So thank you for that. We do.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for coming here. And Tom, were we the first or one of the first tribes to establish a tribal wilderness area? First. So we were the first tribe in the United States to establish a tribal wilderness area. So a piece of our reservation will never be developed. We set it aside for the habitat. And, there's so many reasons why we could develop it and make money off of the land. But we've chosen not to because we have a higher responsibility. And, I'm Salish and Chippewa Cree. My mom's from a different tribe. But the Salish name for ourselves, Skelich, means flesh of the land. And we really take that seriously, that the land is not something separate from us and we are not separate from it. And a lot of our medicine, a lot of our healing, a lot of our songs come from the animals and come from the land. And the land is always depending on us to protect it. And we depend on the land to give us healing, to give us medicine, to give us strength. And we're so fortunate as a tribe that we still live on our Aboriginal homeland where we've always been since time immemorial. And my other two tribes on the other side of my family, they were tribes that were pushed out of where they originally were. And now they're in different places. And we're very lucky as Salish people that we are where we've always been. And we're connected to our medicine and the places that give us strength. And I think sometimes the boundaries are really arbitrary because my great grandfather and my great uncle and lots of people in my family are buried off the reservation. They're Salish people who are buried off the reservation, and we can still go to their grave sites. And there's sacred and holy places for my family that are off the reservation. And so it's all connected for us. And I just think that so many things could have happened to this land. So many things could have happened to us that could have destroyed us. But we've had people in our tribe who protected the land and preserved us. And it's our responsibility. So You know, if I'm lucky enough to have great grandchildren, someday they'll have a home to stand on and say, somebody protected this for me. I can fish here and hunt here. And I grew up in a hunting and fishing family. My grandmother was a hunter and she could go out and hunt and skin out a deer and tan the hide and do everything. I can't do that, but my grandmother did. I could cook it though. But my sister and I grew up fishing, and my dad didn't like to take us hunting because we made too much noise going through the woods, but it's just part of it's something that cannot be replicated anyplace else. It's a very unique and special place that is depending on us to protect it. And we take our role as tribal leaders and stewards of the, part of being a tribal leader for us is being stewards of the land. And I think it's not just our role as a tribal leaders, but as tribal people, it's our sacred responsibility to protect this place and to do everything we can to preserve it.
Good, Tom.
Thank you. I just want to, again, still focus on the Elk River. You know, it's through our entire Aboriginal territory. So when I was a kid, maybe other folks can recall this, going into Canada wasn't a big issue. You know, you didn't even have to have a driver's license. I mean, you just go. It was just like an open border. And so in my childhood, we spent a lot of time up in Canada, in Calgary and all the way up to Edmonton, but we spent a lot of time just across the border and either picking huckleberries or fishing, and that's before Libby Dam was even built, you know, when I was a kid. And so it was really great to reflect upon that. And then my family would go all the way down into Sandpoint and on the Flathead River, in the Clark Fork, and spent a lot of time there, but we spent a lot of time in the Kootenai River country. And so when we talk about the effects of the selenium, you know, the downstream effect goes all the way through the entire United States and of course goes back into Canada. But we believe that it's affecting everything. And we work really hard to try to, when we see an impaired fisheries or water quality, work really hard with all the tools we have, and whatever was the cause or, you know, the reason why it was diminished, we try to put that blame on that entity, you know, if it's a dam or it's mining or it's whatever. But when we do those restoration acts and try to restore, like in the Kootenai River, sturgeon or burbot, or, you know, bring back West Slope cutthroat or wherever it might be as far as like a fish species specific, we may spend a lot of effort with another agency or another mitigation package, only to have it collapse because of something else. And that's what's going on here. This has been going on for such a long time. I think Rich and I first started getting involved with this back in 2010, and officially maybe 2011. But it's always been there. It's been there for me ever since they proposed to build more dams below Libby Dam. We always said, well, you know, there's this mining going on up by Fernie that's just devastating, and it's potentially going to ruin the fishery. And it's just, I'm talking about fabulous fishery. And so it's been there a long time, but we really need to in order to be fully restorative of the impacts like the Kootenai River, we need to deal with each one of these issues that are impairing it. And so, you know, trying to put the force on Canada to do what's right and not make another mess before cleaning up their current messes. So that's what's been going on up there. It's just one mine after another, and they don't take care of it after they're done. It's incredible to see that. I always thought that Butte was something. The Berkeley Pit, that is nothing compared to what's going on up there with the amount of ground movement and mountaintop removal and open pit mining. It is unbelievable. It's beyond comprehension for me. And to see them plow in mountaintop drainages. You know, we take water quality. We're the backbone of the Columbia River. And everybody, we believe in sharing, and everybody has a right to use that water and have clean water as it goes down, all the way down to Astoria in Washington. And to think that they're sitting there at the headwaters of our river system, which is the Columbia, and they're burying literally burying in headwater streams with mine waste, no consideration at all, is beyond our belief system. We would never do that down here in the United States, today. You can't imagine us doing that. I don't know of any proposal that simply going to go up with one of these beautiful mountain drainages and bury the whole drainage, Can you think of that or wherever that's going to happen? It's not going to. They're continuing to do that up there in Canada and in BC. And it really needs to stop. We need to put the pressure on them, the assistance of EPA and all of our federal agencies to try to make sure that they do the right thing. Try to get them to be able to fix that system that's up there. Because they can't. They just don't do they just don't do it. They open up another mine and they don't clean up the past ones to the level that they should. If they would keep up with it, it probably could be something that's sustainable or less impacting at least. But every year it just keeps worse and worse and worse. And it's going up and we're bioaccumulating these toxins in the system. And when I look at the Clark Fork River and what was lost through the copper mining kings and the upper reaches of the Clark Fork, from that mining and toxic chemical wasting into the river system. And to think of how beautiful that Elk River is and the Kootenai River system, to think what is at risk there, because it's going to collapse if they keep going the way they are. We're not going to be able to retrieve back the fishery that's in the Kootenai River or in Lake Kootenai. They really don't understand what can be lost. They haven't. I don't know. Maybe they need to be from Missouri. They're the show me state. You got to see it with your own eyes. Maybe we need to bring all those guys down here and look at Butte and look at the Upper Clark Fork to see what's going on. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys as a partner in this particular effort. It's just fantastic to be able to have you as a partner.
James, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming to visit with us and hear our concerns. I appreciate it. The fundamental relationship was with the treaty that the chairman had discussed. And, the treaty with our tribes went through the same treaty process that a treaty with Japan goes through, or Canada. It went through that same approval process. And what happened is we gave up all of what is now Western Montana for what we have here. And as long as the water flows and the wind blows and those kind of things, well, that didn't last too long. And the middle of our reservation was essentially taken from our tribes without our approval. I'm kind of a amateur research person. I've gone through all kinds of old Indian agent records from our local Indian agent office, and you can see one of our elders, Sam Resurrection. He was very prolific at sending telegrams and letters and such. And at one point he died and he came back to life, and he was still sending telegrams to the president. So I think he came back to life just to haunt the president and the administration at that time. And we're talking early 1900s. And so we had elders that would travel, get on a train, go to DC and fight for what we have here. And, there was no airplanes back in them days. Get on a train, and that's how they made it there. One of the interesting things in my time as chairman that was very helpful that the EPA had was the term treatment as a state. I can't tell you how huge that is. To be able to get direct funding bypassing the state was huge. I wish my fight as a tribal chairman and leader was to try to get that applied to other federal agencies, that we could just bypass a state, because our relationship fundamentally started with the United States government. It didn't start with, the state of Montana didn't exist in 1855. It was Washington territory. So we were forced into that relationship and then into Montana. And we don't always have a good relationship with our states that we were, our case is Montana, other tribes are different ones, but that is a key fundamental that the EPA has that's real important to us. And it would be nice to see that maintained. The other thing that's kind of concerning to me is, we've recently seen that the Office of Research and Development has been eliminated, but it's been replaced by the Office of Applied Science and Environmental Solutions. I'm kind of curious, does that new office going to be doing those things that the old office had done, or is it going to, I'm just trying to do some quick research and trying to see if the elimination of one, is that staffing going to be there in the new one? Is it going to have the same purpose, or, because the things that we're talking about today, it's going to require science to verify, that the vice chairman is talking about some of the impacts that we're expecting from the mining in Canada. How's that going to affect our waterways? And the only way we really can keep track of that is through science. So I like the name of the new replacement entity, but I'm wondering, is it, what's behind that? So thank you.
Councillor Steele, I appreciate the question. If I might give a little bit of the backstory or the history that kind of led us to where we are now. There's a reorg that's going on, or a reorganization of the agency right now. It's really in the DC offices. Obviously, there are the 10 regions, and they have their own staff, and obviously some are here today. But there's been a big reorg of the headquarters office in DC and our Office of Research and Development down in North Carolina. Part of it was trying to figure out what are the needs that we need to fill that we haven't been. So the example that gets used often is PFAS. Obviously, that's been a big topic for a lot of places across the country. We know, what are we doing about it? How's it being addressed? What impact is it having on human health, on animal health? All these questions. Part of that conversation was a kind of a sub conversation about, okay, well, let's replace it with something else that has the same application or same usage or same benefit, but is not as dangerous or has as many unknowns. And so a lot of those chemicals get approved through the EPA, and a lot of those were backlogged at ORD. I couldn't get into the super granular, but it was thousands and thousands of these chemicals that were waiting to be approved, right? It's hard to say for sure if they would have been a good replacement, but they were just waiting to go through that approval process, go through vetting, and to have that analysis so that they can get approved if they are deemed to be safer alternative. And that was one of the priorities of Administrator Zeldin's. All right, we need to we've got a lot of really smart people there, right, with PhDs and toxicologists and whatnot. Let's kind of shift their focus towards some of these applied usages of these chemicals. And so that's part of the reorg that's happening now. I can't give you an exact deadline of when that reorg will be done. It should be at some point in the next quarter or two. I'd have to go back and confirm that, but that's kind of the high level dynamic of what's going on at the Office of Research and Development, and it's getting reorged into a new Office of Applied Sciences.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, and once again, welcome. Thank you for being here. I want to thank each and every one of you for all of the work that you guys have done thus far on this issue. I just wanted to mention one of our objectives here as tribal leaders, and many of us been told by some of our elders, is our decisions that we make up here need to be based on how it's going to impact the next 7 generations. It's extremely challenging dealing with this particular issue with Glencore, because they don't even acknowledge the damages that they're done. I mean, we understand what we need to do is we need to educate the public about the impacts, the negative impacts that are happening, and all of the work that was done for the selenium levels, that is extremely important. I just appreciate all the work that was done on that so they could address that particular issue. But I'm not sure if you've taken the opportunity to actually look at these mining sites, because what they do is they cut off tips of the mountains. Look at our landscape here. Can you picture if the mountains were just cut off right up there? That's exactly what they've done. No remorse. don't really care how it impacts the people downstream, us. Our Aboriginal ground. Many of our people go up north and pick huckleberries this time of the year. And at some point in time, when operations like this continue to happen, are we going to be able to do that in 7 generations? And it's really challenging because as Indian tribes downstream from these operations, what exactly can we do to make sure that they're hearing us? You know, there's been hundreds of meetings that have taken place with these mining companies, and I think the latest outcome was they were going to construct water treatment plants. Is that right, Tom? They had 13 of them that they told us that we're going to build. I think they have one constructed now. That one. They have a couple now. Okay. Okay. And that was their response to us. Not really. And we all know they're just a little mining company that's going to throw money at everything to try to make it go away. You know, but the fact of the matter is, this is a permanent damage that is being done to our resource, to our Aboriginal ground. And it's just frustrating. That's why it is extremely important that we have a federal agency like EPA that continues to support us. And we always appreciate the support from EPA. And but all I ask is don't forget about us. Don't forget about us up here, because we still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of we still have to answer to our people. Well, what exactly has CSKT done to address what's happening up there? But once again, I just want to thank you all, and once again, all of the work that you've done, Aaron. I just want to acknowledge you. I know you've done a lot of hard work on the selenium levels, and we appreciate that. We noted it. We notice it. We never ever tell you this, but you need to know that, because I know you do work hard on it. So thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Hey, Len, I'm glad you brought up the selenium, because the selenium level standard for Lake Koocanuska, our reservoir, is critical. And EPA has supported that. And we hope that remains in play, because that is a threshold that makes sure for us, gives us some confidence that we won't be, the bioaccumulation of selenium in that water body and downstream will hopefully, be something that's livable as long as we start pulling back, up above. So that Tech Mining and now Glencore, there's proposals to open up new mines. And that's the thing. How can we make them clean up what they already got? My grandmother, I said this, I think, at the last meeting we had, my grandmother would always say, don't start something new and create a new mess until you clean up your old one. And that's not happening up there. I mean, that's just simply not what's going on. And it's incredible. Every time they lay waste to a mountain and dig a new hole, all that wasted rock is there, and the hole's there, and that additional runoff of selenium and other, and the nitrates from all their explosives that they use to blast out the rock. It's incredible. It's not that we're against mining. It just needs to be done, with full mitigation or in balance with what's going on. And that's so out of balance up there. It's incredible. So I guess our recommendations are trying to work in the IJC with the continued support of EPA, and to make sure that we can start seeing some decline in the water pollution that's occurring in Elk River. And to maybe try to hold them at bay from any new mining. Glencore around the world, if you study them, they're not good for the environment. And it is one of the largest, if not the largest mining company in the world. You know, they've done some extreme devastation in certain countries and in South America in particular. Was one guy he's a priest actually a Jesuit priest down in St. Ignatius, and he's from South America. And he saw my name in a news story talking about tech mining in Elk River up in British Columbia. And he got me off to the side one day and he said, you know, I'm from down there, I'm from South America. And it was incredible to see the devastation that they did to the local communities and the environment down there. Absolutely no regard. It was just completely devastate the landscape and leave. And he said, I'm so happy to hear that you guys are trying to stop them or you're concerned about your environment, because there was no way to even battle them down there, Glencore. So it's up to us to try to do that. You know, and Canada, you know, and British Columbia has been, in my opinion, very difficult to work with. The British Columbia administration, their politics might as well have been just tech mining. You know, might as well just be talking to the mining officials, because it didn't appear to be there was any separation between, you know, being a stockholder in tech mining or administrator or CEO of that company and being the lead official for British Columbia. There was nothing that separated them. It was so corrupt, in my opinion. I think it was the last, what do they call the prime minister? What do they call the British Columbia premier? Or someone, he went to work for tech mining the day after he retired. And it was just like, wow, how corrupt is this? You know, it's just amazing to me. So to be able to say no or do the right thing, you know, water quality is important, and it's everybody's obligation to make sure that next person downstream can drink that water. And if you're not doing that for your neighbor, you know, you're not upholding what you should be doing as a human being. And we view all wildlife, fish and wildlife is the same. They all have a spirit, they all have the right to live, and they're part of our subsistence. And we care about everybody. We care about our sister tribe in Idaho. We care about all our tribes in Canada. We care about all the US citizens. We care about Canadian citizens. We're all human beings. So we just want to make sure we live in balance. And so, you know, again, this particular issue, the transboundary issue with the mining up there is, we really, again, I gotta say it again. I'm gonna say it over and over again. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna say it tomorrow too. We really appreciate your effort and help with us in this particular issue, because it's so incredibly important to be able to have that Kootenai River, Lake Kootenai and the Kootenai River system be there. We've been working with our sister tribe, the Kootenai tribe of Idaho, to restore burbot, and we're starting to see fish deformities. We're seeing reproduction issues because of selenium in the system. It's getting to that level in the bioaccumulation that's having really a persistent effect, a negative effect in our ability to restore that fishery or even maintain it. We put out food advisory warnings, and we're at that level. We're not saying not eat it, but be conditioned at this point in time. We do have some other advisories we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but that particular one, we're not quite there yet.
It's actually very obscene, the amount of money they make at our expense. It's just obscene. I don't know what the bottom line for Glencore is for all of that Canadian mining, but it is huge. And any penalties they've had to date are not even a drop in the bucket to them. I don't know how you manage people when it really doesn't matter to them. Any other thoughts here? I'm hoping to hear a little about the Superfund stuff from Ellie.
Do you want general updates, or do you guys have specific questions? I can do whatever works best.
Let's start with the general update.
Okay. I can start with Smurfit Stone, the proposed Superfund site outside of Frenchtown, Montana. Last year, we conducted 5 consecutive sampling events to address concerns around a lack of characterization. We just received the last of that data from the fall of last year, It's over 85,000 individual samples that we'll be reviewing and compiling. And with that data, we'll be updating our risk assessments and the next remedial investigation report that will inform the next phase, which is looking at cleanup alternatives. So we gave that update to Chris and Mary Price, who's on the phone, at the community meeting last Thursday, but it was a very busy field year looking at additional sampling on the site and in the Clark Fork River. Now that we have that data, we do need to compile all that, work with our experts, and produce updated risk assessments to inform cleanup decisions. So we're in a very big heads down phase where we're compiling and analyzing the data, but we'll keep everyone informed as we get that data analyzed. We have our Frenchtown Working Group, which is made up of natural resource damages trustees, Missoula County, the community group, and CSKT is a big part of that Frenchtown Working Group. And so we'll share updates at that forum throughout the next year and to the community group too.
We have a specific question, Clint, Tom?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for that update. So, as I mentioned, we're the warning fishing consumption. We've been way beyond that in this particular issue. So it's, used to call that the cloud making plant when it was running, stick up the whole Missoula Valley, and those plants tend to be right on water courses, and right in the floodplain. And so with all those, all the toxins, all the adverse or the negative chemicals that are bad for the environment and human health and safety, it was always concerning to see that there. And then to have it close without really any good, analysis of what the effects are that are remaining there and what could happen if we have a 100-year flood event or a 500-year flood event, or what's the continued seepage going into the river. And we always told everybody, don't eat the fish, don't eat the fish there. So, but it's at that point where now we've lost a treaty resource because the fish are toxic and we can't safely eat those fish. So it's imperative that you have the best data and the most data you can possibly get. I know there was more data that was gathered, but to put together the best risk assessment you can and the best, plan to restore and protect that area from further damage or stop what's occurring. Because I'm not exactly sure how your plan will restore that fish so it becomes a food source again for us, but that's 100 miles or more of river reach that we can't fish anymore. That was in the central point of our Aboriginal territory. The Missoula doesn't get any more central to the core area of our tribes. And that Clark Fork River in that particular area, the confluence of the Bitterroot and downstream with the Flathead is very important. There's villages and campsites all around that area where there people resided all the time and fished, and we still have a lot of people fish there, and we try to keep them from eating that fish. But inevitably, it's hard for us to edify all of our members. We have nearly 9,000 members and extended families. You can double that and try to make sure that people know that, hey, don't eat that cutthroat trout out of the Clark Fork in that reach or in that area. It's very tough. And so it's really important to be able to get on it as quick as possible, at least in my opinion. And there's so many other streams and the Bitterroot River, Rock Creek, Rattlesnake Creek, the Blackfoot River, Flathead River is just downstream, and they're just, I don't know. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I think we acknowledge that is a huge issue and something that when the site Smurfit was proposed, we had that do not consume fish advisory from the state of Montana. Most recently, CSKT expanded it to include the Blackfoot River and other reaches. I think we're doing everything we can on the Smurfit Stone team to identify contamination and to study its impact on the Clark Fork River. We have known contamination and we know it impacts and moves into the Clark Fork River. The leading cause of the bioaccumulant in the fish is from PCBs, which have not been identified at elevated levels at Smurfit Stone. And so we're trying to help clarify with the EPA Superfund team at Smurfit. We're going to move as quickly as we can to study and address the issues that we have, while also addressing characterization concerns, sampling again for PCBs, looking everywhere we can to make sure that isn't the cause. We do have additional data from an EPA grant that studied the Clark Fork River from its headwaters near Butte all the way down to the confluence with the Flathead that showed there are elevated PCBs upstream of the site. And so I think I've never been a part of a Kootenai River meeting, but hearing that watershed approach to things and working with partners to make a difference. I think the Clark Fork River, and Mary Price spoke to this at our last community meeting, we need to take a watershed approach to addressing the issues within the Clark Fork River. We'll do everything we can at the Smurfett Stone team with our enforcement and our authorities to address contamination as quickly and efficiently as possible, working with our stakeholders very closely. But the Clark Fork River is a hardworking river, has a lot of industrial and mining impacts, and we need to make sure we're looking beyond and addressing all the issues so that we can restore the Clark Fork. So I appreciate those comments, and I think as an EPA team, we're looking at how to best move forward.
Go ahead, Cyrus.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, I appreciate that. Oh, certainly on this job, I've realized that answers don't come easily, right? You know, I'll ask my team a question, and it's a series of kind of mini questions that lead to answering the bigger question. And I think when it comes to this specific site, you know, I know that PCE component it's a big concern. While we have confirmed it's not coming from the site, it's still coming from somewhere. It's still a toxic substance that has a negative impact on wildlife, has a negative impact on human health. So, no, in my time as the region administrator, I'm absolutely committed to having those further conversations of, well, you know, it's good that we've eliminated this source, but it's coming from somewhere. And so I'm certainly committed to answering that question and welcome those conversations with all the stakeholders, obviously with CSKT or local folks in the county. That's a conversation I want to have.
Any other questions fund-wise? Mary, Chris?
Mr. Chairman, if I might just share a little bit of my kind of philosophy around superfunds. But they're inherently very difficult problems that have been around for many, many years. A lot of these Superfund sites in Montana and throughout the country, they outlast people. And so I'm not going to sit here and I can come in with a magic wand and solve these problems, whether it's CFAC or Smurfett or Butte or Libby or any of these other Superfund sites. But my big focus is following the circle process and making progress. One of the big concerns I have seen around the region, and I think in general with Superfund sites, is that for whatever reason, these sites start spinning their tires and they're not making progress, or they're not following, you know, whether it's the risk assessment or the feasibility study or, you know, remedy analysis or remedy implementation or just that protocol that's outlined in statute. That's something I really want to avoid. And sometimes that means making hard decisions that might upset, you know, one stakeholder or another, whether it be the state or locals or whoever it may be. But that's certainly my commitment during my time here is to continue to follow that process and absolutely going the extra mile to have those consultations with stakeholders along the way. And if there's things that we can do to accommodate their concerns, whether it be extra testing or whatever it may be, we want to do my very best to accommodate those concerns. But ultimately, I believe the yardstick of measurement is: are we making progress? You know, are we advancing to the next step in the circle process?
I appreciate that in a lot of ways. At the same time, we continue to suffer. And as companies like Glencore stretch it out, they get to continue to pollute. And every time we do something that puts something, installs it, that's more pollution. They never stop polluting while we ask these questions. They keep polluting and keep polluting. And that's the tough thing for me. And so following the process is cool, but following the process continues the pollution a lot of times. So other thoughts or questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just make a couple comments.
Please, Mary.
Thank you. I think I'm encouraged to hear that EPA is committed to the Superfund process, and the tribes have been consistently in agreement with seeing that process through. At the same time, it has been quite a lengthy process, and I think where we could perhaps move it address the issue of the fishery is to maybe start thinking outside of the Superfund box. For example, the Columbia River restoration funding that was awarded to Trout Unlimited and Fish, Wildlife and Parks, I think is going to provide us with more data about sources in the watershed. And we fully acknowledge that the Smurfit site is not the only source. What we'd like to see is more of a watershed-based approach, because fish don't live in streams, they live in watersheds. And so we would like to see, any way we can work with EPA to expand data collection, to look at the watershed as a whole, I think would move things along. At the same time, we do want to see a little more emphasis on looking at dioxins and furans. Yes, PCBs are the driver of the risk assessment, but we do have other contaminants as well. And we do not want to lose sight of that. And those contaminants are typically associated with pulp and paper mills. So I think EPA in the past on the Clark Fork River has had some success. For example, the Milltown Dam removal, the Milltown Operable Unit site. That was, I think, a big success. We now have a state park there. It restored the movement of fish into the Blackfoot drainage. And so I'm hoping that we can continue to have that kind of relationship where EPA and the tribes work closely together. And I think one of the things about the Milltown Operable Unit that was a success is because EPA was fully transparent and included all the stakeholders. We're very diligent about that, and we're hoping to see that continue on Smurfit. And the Clark Fork River, EPA has quite a presence there with all the operable units. And the tribe's philosophy has been that the Clark Fork River is a unitary resource and not a series of operable units. And so we're just, would like to expand EPA's perspective on that, to not focus entirely on Superfund and operable units, but what are some other tools does EPA have in its toolbox that we can bring to bear on this issue? Because the tribe's goal is to someday be able to lift the fish consumption advisory. This is hopefully just a temporary placeholder. And we don't, and I think we have a real opportunity here. It's not like Elk River. We haven't seen the devastation here. There's been some serious damage in the upper basin, but I think we have an opportunity, and the extent that we can work together can only help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mary. Other comments, other thoughts, questions? Oh,
Well, I'd like to talk about CFAC.
Yes. Okay, a quick update on CFAC. EPA selected a final cleanup decision in January of this year. I came onto the site a couple weeks ago, and we have been negotiating the consent decree with Columbia Falls Aluminum Company, involving the state of Montana in putting that cleanup action into place. So since I became involved, we have been negotiating with the parties to sign a final consent decree to implement that cleanup. This year, we are going to begin some pre-design drilling to inform the selected cleanup, which is a slurry wall and consolidating waste on site into a protective area. So there will be a community meeting coming up this month, and we'll work with Aluminum City and the Flathead to have a public meeting and inform folks that will be out there doing some drilling to inform our final cleanup action. Thank you. This is my first consent decree, but the consent decree, once it's lodged, does go out for public comment. So there'll be an opportunity for an EPA public meeting and then public comment on the consent decree. And then I'm probably better at answering specific questions since I'm still getting up to speed on the Columbia Falls site.
Good, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that update. And I'm glad you inherited it. Hopefully you'll make some better positive headway with it. Yeah, I have a hard time with the slurry wall, obviously, but that's over a mile and a half of river frontage that site has, and it's been a problem for us from the day it was constructed. From especially with air quality stuff and fluoride and everything that was there. I mean, there were some devastating effects from that aluminum plant. I had a cousin that worked there, and he's no longer with us. I think his death was a result of working at that plant for his career. But when you think about that facility, it really, what I'm worried about is Flathead Lake and the Flathead River, and it's directly coming on to over half the lake is within our exterior boundaries, and the Flathead River is very important for us. And you think about the fisheries in Flathead Lake and Flathead River, resident fish that live right there next to the plant, migratory bull trout that move through there, and other fisheries. It's just, at times it's been obviously identified that there's exceeding water quality standards and pollutants that are discharged right there from that plant, from that site. And so that's concerning. And to think we're leaving it all in place. It's like a time bomb that we're just leaving. And we're putting in this theoretical, I can't see it, this slurry wall going down how many feet? That's going to keep this from migrating into the river, which is a natural migration flow, is, what I got a London Bridge, I'll sell you, kind of thing for me. It's wow. It's hard for me to believe that that's going to work. And so that's the confidence. And I really didn't think that the agency was really looking at fisheries as an impact. And so, as I mentioned before, bull trout and mussel cutthroat are really important for us. And so, bull trout are a threatened endangered species. That population of Flathead Lake that migrates up there and the resident fish that live there are the reason why bull trout are listed. And so at first it seemed like everybody was just ignoring that. And that doesn't matter. I don't think that's the case now. You're gonna look at the fish probably better now or not. I don't know. But I would hope so, because that's the key thing, at least for us, is that particular issue.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chairman. And I think I'm happy to come onto the site too. I think the relationships I've built on the Smurfit site carry a lot into Columbia Falls, and one of them is with Fish Wildlife Service. So something that we're doing later this week is initiating consultation with Fish Wildlife Service for the critical habitat of bull trout adjacent to the site. And so as soon as I got on the site, we started looking at coordinating with any potential impacts and making sure that Fish Wildlife Service looks at our implemented remedial action, and that we're consulting closely with their agency as they look at those impacts. So we definitely are aware and looking into any potential impacts for critical habitat of bull trout, along with the other endangered species present at the site. And I'm sympathetic to the concern of that remedy. I think slurry walls are implemented across the country, and they have been shown to be successful. There are plan Bs in place so that we can pump and treat water or go relook at the remedy too. So we don't just implement and walk away. We'll implement the remedy, test it, make sure it's functioning, and then we're never walking away from that. We'll always be out there testing and ensuring that we don't have groundwater leaving the slurry wall area. So I think I looked at the history of selecting that, and with the long commute of a hazardous waste, I think the best decision was made for both the Flathead and the Clark Fork, where this waste would have been transported for years alongside of. And I think EPA has the resources and the ability to make it the most protective in the long term possible, and will always be out there ensuring that that is the case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, obviously, the plan was approved before the consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for threatened endangered. You can see that that's kind of wrong, at least in my opinion. It's like that should have been done from the get-go, right? Be all inclusive and let's look at all the effects. And I think it's after the fact kind of consultation, or that just kind of demonstrates to me that it's a flawed plan.
No, thank you, Vice Chairman. They were included on the biological assessment of risk, and so we had a stakeholder group that weighed in on identifying impacts of current site conditions. And so they have been involved from day one. It was when I stepped in and inherited the cleanup action that we knew we would be implementing on those next steps. So they were involved throughout the process, but now we're involving them as we look at implementing the remedy as we're negotiating that. So just getting ahead of any potential impacts, but they were a part of the previous one. So thank you for clarifying.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Just a quick question here on a follow-up there. Throughout this process, so are we requiring a bond from Glencore on this project?
Yes, there is a financial assurance requirement with the consent decree.
I truly believe that as long as the material stays on the site, it will end up in Flathead Lake.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please do.
Mr. Vice Chairman, was there an alternative remedy that you would have preferred?
Yes, remove it and haul it offsite. That's what we preferred. Yep. Get it out of here. Get it away from the river. Get it to a place where it can't enter a waterway. The best thing for us is always to do something that doesn't impact a waterway. That's what you really have to look at. So site placement, where you do it, so it's unfortunate a lot of these things are in the headwaters or they're planted right beside a river, yeah. I don't know, there's a railroad track right there, you can load it up and take it to a site that's better, that gives us that guarantee, that satisfaction. Because, Flathead Lake is a jewel for so many people. And not just the tribes. You talk about people in America that you can see Flathead Lake from the moon. It's that big. And it's one of those rare jewels that the planet enjoys as far as a pristine water quality. And it's highly ranked. Aaron can talk about that. One of our outstanding scientists in the biological station on Flathead Lake was created because of Flathead Lake and trying to make sure it stays that way. And to think that, here's this potential pollutant that can be devastating to the system right there, still intact. It's still intact. Been closed for a while, but still intact. And we're going to protect it with a slurry wall doesn't give me the confidence level that I would feel if I owned it or if it was my personally thing. I wouldn't do that. And that's the way I feel, because it is ours. It's our land. We have our obligation to the environment. We have a trust responsibility that we share with you to make sure things are okay. And we care about the people, the communities. We really do. Now, Glencore, I always find this troubling when we allow the polluter to write the plan. I have zero confidence in that. And so, I always, that troubles me. It troubles me all the time when we allow the industry to be able to do it. They may be the best. If you trust them, you really do, that could be the right way to go. But in this particular case, I don't think it is, for sure. I have zero confidence in Glencore. They don't care about us. They don't care about Flathead Lake.
And it'd be such a small expense for them. They make so much money. And as Len pointed out, we're not worried about tomorrow. We're worried about past 7 generations. That's what we think about. What else?
I think, was there any other updates we had for him, Allie or Carolina? And those are kind of the two big ones. I don't know. I think also I've got Kim Verlick online as well, who is the director for my tribal relations. I don't know, Kim, can you hear us okay? I think we're having a tough time. Looks like you can hear us, but we're having a tough time hearing you.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, we got you.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yep.
There we go. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you again, council members, chairman, vice chairman, everyone for joining us and letting us speak with you and meet with you today. There was a question fielded to us about the upcoming budget questions for fiscal year 26 and 27. We wanted to clarify first and foremost that for the environmental programs that we work with you in the capacity building context and support your environmental program context, that the funding that we utilize for fiscal year 26 is actually FY25 funding. And we have that money in-house, and we will be getting that prepared to set to our grants office and awarded to you hopefully by the end of the fiscal year. That is the goal. At this time, we don't foresee any issue at this point in terms of making those awards. So for at least fiscal year 26, you will see more programs continue to move forward at the funding allocation amounts that we sent out in early spring. In terms of the budget now for fiscal year 26, or excuse me, 27, those will be conditioned on the president, and not just the president's budget, but the actual budget that comes from Congress. And I know Cyrus has a lot of experience in budget work and understanding those negotiations. But at this time, you probably know as much as we do about fiscal year 27, the budget money that's going to come down in 26. We're all still kind of waiting and seeing. We know Congress will be coming back from recess in September. Hopefully we'll see some movement towards those funding amounts, toward whether it's continuing resolutions, whether it's actually an approved budget. Hopefully we'll see that move forward. So we'll continue to keep everybody updated when we find out. But honestly, you may have to see that information for yourself as well in real time. But do you have any questions in terms of FY26 funding or programs? And hey, Rich, I saw you there.
No, I think just wanted to update, you know, this stuff coming out of the Senate, the Congress about the appropriations. We're hearing that, you know, the original EPA budget was a 55% cut, and maybe it's down to 23% now. Our biggest issue with the tribes is that we rely solely on EPA funding to fund our EPA programs. There is no other money. So if we lose money for water quality, we're not sampling. You know, it's that big of an issue. And it's not only we're not sampling, we lose staff who have been here for years. We lose that knowledge. Not only air, water, pesticides, you know, we have a robust staff of scientists, and even the threat of them losing their job makes me think they're going to go look for another one. And that's one of our biggest issues. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rich. Can you get to my, yeah.
Yeah. I just want you to know that our tribe has always produced with EPA programs. To me, we are the flagship tribe. We have competent, qualified staff. A lot of them are our own tribal members. And we have 4 federally credentialed inspectors, 2 in pesticides.
USLUST. And then our regulatory water quality.
Yeah. And we push those because we are the minority on our reservation. Many people don't even know they're on a reservation when they drive through here. And that has always been concerning to us, but they do know when it comes to environmental regulations, they move here because of us, because we protect, we produce, and we excel. So I just want you to know that when you go back to DC and you know, and when they take away and even reduce, however small, it impacts us. It does, because we're, you know, a moderately sized environmental protection division that has built capacity over since Clinton started it. And we talked about that when I knew Robbie Roberts under George Bush, who had your position. I didn't know him, but I met him a couple times. You know, so I've been around to where the regional administrators were older than me. Now they're younger, which is kind of cool, so to speak. So thank you very much for coming.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Administrator Western, the interesting thing that Chauncey brings up is, and that's what, it's very troubling to see, potentially funding to go away and losing staff, because it's easier to collapse a building than it is to build it. It takes time to build capacity and hire staff and build a program. It only takes just like one day to tear it down and to lose funding and lose that continuity and that ability to provide that resource protection. And so that is a really important thing. So if there's any way you can help with that, think of ways to be creative or, deal with the congressional budget, whatever money you have to help us out will be greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. And it's, as a staff has said, it's well spent funding. It benefits everybody here, benefits all of our Western Montana residents in the greater area and Aboriginal area, but specifically for our reservation in particular. So appreciate any help you can do with that.
well, thank you. Definitely for coming and visiting with us today and seeing our concerns, and it'll be interesting to do the tour tomorrow. James?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. Looking up your background, it says you were in a Wyoming State House. Did you serve in the House?
Mr. Chairman, Counselor, I was in the legislature in Cheyenne for 3 years. I was raised in Sheridan, Wyoming, grew up working on ranches. And so for me, I'm not just some bureaucrat they shipped out, put on a plane from DC. The Rocky Mountain West is all I know. And when I'm done with this job and politics in general, I'm going to go back to Sheridan. That's where I'm going to live. That's where I have a 6-month-old daughter, and that's where I want to raise her. So to me, I'm a big bow hunter. So the land means a great deal to me. I think if you don't have healthy land, if you don't have healthy soils, if you don't have healthy water, at the end of the day, what do you have? So it's something that it's a balancing act, certainly between the economic needs and their interest, right? And Administrator Zeldin, I'm certainly committed to doing my very best to striking that balance. But at the end of the day, that air, land, and water is really important. It's something it's always on the front of my mind. Is what are we doing protective? What impact is this going to have? Am I okay making this decision if I live there? If I had to live next to this river or next to this mine or whatever it may be, would I be okay with that? Would I be okay with my child having that exposure? So I really try not to think of these as decisions that are going to impact someone in a far off place, but as if I know these people like they are my neighbors or they're my friends or people who I know. So
if I may, do
Please
you
go
know Ivan Posey?
I do.
Yeah, I served with him when I was chairman, so I'm still friends with him. So he's the only native legislator in the Wyoming legislature. So
That's correct. Yeah.
yeah, so I quickly looked up your background because when you interact with tribes, they often want to know where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
as you go to the different tribes, you don't have to make a big biography, but just tell them where you're from and
Sure.
your family. Because what you told me was just real helpful to know what your background is and where you're from. So
Absolutely.
I don't know why I thought of it, but I'm like, hey, where's he from?
So
thank you for
Representative Posey. He's a great guy. He was getting elected just as I was leaving. Andy Clifford LeBeau was from the Wind River Reservation I served with, and I got this job, he texted me congratulations, and we keep a friendly relationship. So
thank you for indulging me in that question.
Absolutely.
I was glad to hear too. I have 2 grandsons that are going to grow up on Lake Koocanusa, so it's important. Again, thank you. Go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to check in on logistics for tomorrow. I'll be your organizer for the group. We're going to start at 8:30 a.m. at Libby Dam. I just wanted to make sure you got got the memo, and if you had any questions, fire away.
We're quite aware, and it is a ways to go.
Jason, is it okay if I wear shorts?
Yes.
Okay.
Encouraged.
Can I bring my fishing pole? No.
Yes.
Again, thank you all for coming and the work that you do. It's so important to us. Anything else? Any final word?
Oh, sorry. Mr. Chairman, if I just might add one thing, just to, sorry to circle back on the Superfund sites, but I think what you're hearing from, and I'm so glad, Mr. Western, that you said there's an open door with your staff. And I think you've heard a real interest from our side, from CSKT, I shouldn't say side, in wanting to work with you. And you heard from Mary Price and wanting to do that watershed approach. And I think we'd really like to, at both Smurfit and CFAC, work with you to develop, sampling or monitoring plans that will make sure that they look at the river and the impacts to the fish, and to even participate in those sampling activities. So if that's, I know, real concern and interest in ours, and we'd love to work with you and your staff at both of those sites to do that. So thanks for letting me slip that in there, and thank you for coming. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chelsea. We have a really active and very good legal department. But my agenda says provide opportunities for photos. I think that's where we're at.
Can we go into executive for the next issue? We're gonna go into executive.
And we've 4 items.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members. So the first item would be the OGS resolution that Lindsay, Chelsea, and Anna Miller spoke about earlier.
Motion to approve.
Motion by James to approve the defenders training. Second by Bing. All in favor? We're unanimous.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman, council members. The second item would be a motion to accept a limited waiver of immunity for the sole purpose of enforcing the contract name. Mike, I'll let you give that.
Yeah, this is for the NTA contract for the contractor to do turnkey project.
Have a motion motion by James to, and second by Tom to accept the clause of limited sovereignty immunity for the, just specifically for the contract. All in favor? Len? We got 6-4 and Len opposed.
Then our last 2 items, Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it off to Brian for his 2 resolutions.
The first resolution would be for the tribes to approve the Purdue bankruptcy plan that would set in motion the larger settlement with the Purdue Pharma and Sackler family.
Motion by Tom, second by Len. All in favor? Unanimous.
And the second one is for a settlement package with 9 small opioid manufacturers and the Kroger retail grocer.
Motion by Tom, second by Len. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned.
Do we have quorum for Thursday?